And good morning. I'm John Hutchings, Chair of the Board for the County Commissioners, and welcome to the agenda setting work session for April 16, 2019. And we'll go around the room and introduce ourselves.
Gary Edwards.
Time answer.
Thomasina Cooper, Assistant to Time Answer.
Lawfully Bolmar, Clerk of the Board.
And Ramiro.
Ramiro Chavez, County Manager. Thank you.
And on the bench.
Slow.
Robin. I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Robin Court's Executive Assistant.
Megan Porter, Public Information Supervisor.
And welcome. And a host of who's who in the gallery here. So we're going to start with the review of today's agenda for the 2 o'clock meeting of April 16, 2019. And first thing on the list is at 2 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. And we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Vice Chair Gary Edwards. And then alleged approval of the agenda and board meeting minutes of April the 9th. And that takes us to presentations, and we have a presentation today.
Yes, Commissioners. The first presentation that you have is from Ms. Cheryl Haywood. She is the Director of the Timberland Regional Library. That's her yearly address to the board. And as you have seen her in the past, she's very energetic. I always look forward to her presentation, so she will be here this afternoon. The second presentation is a proclamation where you may consider proclaim Earth Day for April 22nd, 2019. And we have a schedule to come. Mr. Ralph Monroe is going to be here, as well as Mr. Eli Sterling. Mr. Ralph Monroe, as you know, he's very passionate in involving school kids in planting trees and making a lot of great impact to the trails on the west side of Olympia. And Mr. Eli Sterling is represented from the procession of the species. I don't expect to have drums or anything else this afternoon, but certainly it's going to be an opportunity for you to hear the upcoming event.
What is Eli's last name?
Eli Sterling.
Sterling, that's right. And before we move on, any comments regarding the Timberland Regional Library? Questions or comments?
No, sir.
Sorry, one step ahead of you.
Nope.
Nope.
Oh, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And the third item that you have is Josh Cummings, the Director of the Community Planning and Economic Development Department. He will be introducing 3 key members of his leadership team. That will be Linda O'Neill. She is the Fiscal Manager. Jeremy Davis. He was promoted to the Operations Manager. And Brett Burrs. He is the Building and Planning Manager.
People are already on board now, huh?
Yep.
Good. That takes us to agenda item number 1, opportunity for the public to address the board. You aware of anything?
I don't expect anything, but again, maybe something related to the courthouse, as you have a public hearing scheduled for next Tuesday. So you may receive some public testimony on that.
Either you gentlemen aware of anything?
No.
Would we anticipate anything from regarding the North Point issue? Because we've been receiving emails.
Yep.
Maybe you could receive some testimony on that, and you have an executive session on your agenda later today, and you will have an opportunity to discuss the Maytown case in relation to this particular proposal.
All right. County Manager's update.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on a couple of public testimonies that you received last week. On your agenda today, you have an item where we go into detail some of the public testimony you received and my proposed response to that. And also, I'd like to highlight to the public that you will be holding an off-site Board of County Commissioners meeting on the 31st. That will be in the Rainier on the 30th, but it's in Rochester area. And I will get all that information ironed out this afternoon, and we'll keep announcing for the next 2 weeks that you will have an offsite meeting. And this is an attempt for, I believe, for the board to start reaching out to some of the areas of the communities. And we're going to have rotating among the 3 different districts. So the next, on a quarterly basis for the rest of the year. So the next is going to be somewhere in Yelm. And in the latter part of the year will be somewhere in the Olympia area.
Okay. Anything?
No.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
And the time that this will
thank
take
you.
place?
It will be 5:30 in the afternoon.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Item number 3, consent items A, B, and C.
Item 3A, you already reviewed this item last week, and this is from the Office of Public Defense. And this is a request for your consideration to reclassify a legal assistant 1 to a legal assistant 2. And this proposal is aligned to the increase of workloads related to the office. As you know, the board has approved additional attorneys and in-house attorneys with the attempt to bring some of the panel attorneys' work into in-house, and as a result has increased the demand for a legal assistance. So this proposal is aligned to the business needs of the office. It has been reviewed by Human Resources, and the department supported of that. This action will include increasing the salary from $4,541 to $5,006. That will be $465 a month, or just about 10%. The office is not requesting additional budget for this particular action. And you have seen some of this reclassifications in the last couple of weeks. Also in the last couple of weeks, I have mentioned to you that I'm working on a guidance, what I call position control. That guidance was presented to the appointed directors as well as the chiefs of the elected offices yesterday. And I asked them to provide any feedback, and hopefully that will start giving a little bit of guidance as to how we consistently need to introduce those items for your consideration.
All right, questions or comments?
No, sir.
Thank you. B?
This is a follow-up to the board's direction. And this, for your consideration, is for you to appoint Mr. Bob Jones and Ms. Gina Thompson to the Treatment Sales Tax Advisory Committee for the period of April 16, 2019 and April 15, 2022. And this is on the heels of you holding a public hearing and taking an affirmative action to change the Thurston County Code to allow the increase of the Treatment Sales Tax Committee from 7 members to 9 members.
Good. And, nope. Oh, good. And C is the vouchers for the month. And I've gone through them. I'm trusting seatmates have. Questions or comments? Okay. Agenda item number 4, Public Health Social Services, Mason County MOU.
Thank you, Commissioner. This item you also reviewed last week, and this is a memorandum of understanding with Mason County. And this is to provide supplies related to the syringe exchange program. Staff reported to you last week. The state is the one who funds the supplies, and there was perhaps a surplus as to what we can use here in Thurston County, and this MOU allows for us to provide those additional supplies to Mason County in supporting their syringe exchange program. And that this MOU has an end date of June 30th, 2019. No county funds are associated with this purchase.
That's my question. Anything, Gary?
No, sir.
We asked a lot of questions last week, I remember. So.
Just like Gary reminds everybody, we beat these issues up the day of, the week before, and sometimes 2 or 3 weeks before we get to them. That's why we don't end up with a lot of questions today. agenda item number 5. Are you kidding me? What a short agenda.
Yes, because you have a transportation benefit district
Yep.
board meeting after the fact. So you do have, for your consideration, an additional item for the Commissioner's office. And this is to amend the current contract with Thomas Architectural Studios to increase the dollar amount to $400,000. And this is to support the planning of the Courthouse and Regional Administrative Building project and authorize the county manager to sign this amendment and with an additional 20%. This is expected as we have added additional work for the consultant. There is not an increase in budget. This is just an authorization for you to consider authorization for an additional expenditure authority. The budget for this particular effort is going from the real estate excise tax 1, read 1.
Nothing today.
Gary?
Yes, the dollar amount, it says here to 400,000, and what is that coming from? What was it set at, and how much is the?
So the initial action that you took was 300,000 plus 20%. So obviously the 300,000 plus 20% would put us at 360,000. So there's an additional $40,000 request.
And you said this is already budgeted. What budget amount are we budgeted in this particular category?
The budget amount on the REIT?
Yeah, well, you said that this is already budgeted, you said. I'm just curious, out of what line item is that coming?
And that real estate excise tax, 1.
And had we set a dollar amount for this information gathering, if you will? I'm just curious. You said we wouldn't be over budget.
No, we will not. And that is on point. We will not be over budget.
I think what you're,
Because we will not be asking the commissioners to authorize something that will be over budget.
Yeah. I was wondering what the budgeted amount was.
that's what I think. We have the money coming in.
She will get the line item for
The
you.
the revenue's coming in, but I think what we're looking for is what was the budgeted amount? And we're going to go up to 400,000 more.
That's right.
Earmark.
I mean, I just wondered if we had 500,000 set aside or what. I don't know.
Yeah, give us a minute, Robin will give you that. But
we can
again,
circle back on that.
This is a expenditure authority within the contract limitations.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the answer I'm looking for.
What was the limitation?
I don't know, yeah. I didn't know where we're going with that. I mean, things are up in the air about what might happen here anyway. And, you know, are we maxed out once we hit 500,000? You know, we're going from 3 to 4. I'm just curious where we draw the line.
So give us a minute and we'll give you the answer of the line item.
Okay.
for budget. Maybe we can,
While you look that up, we're going to move on, while Robin looks it up.
Sure.
any additional questions on that, commissioners?
Pardon me?
On this item, any additional
No
questions?
additional questions, no. And so 5A is on hold until we get that answer. 5B is the commissioner's reporting on our activities, and then C is the county manager's review of the calendar. And then with no further business, we will adjourn this afternoon's meeting. And we open up at 3:30 for the Transportation Benefit District, and so I'm going to turn it over to President Ty Menser.
Okay, 3:30, call to order. We'll have approval of agenda and minutes from March 19th. Time for the opportunity for public to address the board. And department items will start with item 3A, Public Works State of the County Road System.
Good morning, Jennifer Walker, Public Works Director. Yeah, this first item will be presented by Steve Bricker. He's our construction manager, and he'll talk a little bit about just the current state of our roads, the condition of them, and the maintenance that we've done on them over the past few years, and then where we're headed with that maintenance based on funding.
Anything?
Good.
Item 3B, will be, looks like Lucy Mills for road fund forecast and future state.
Yes, so Lucy Mills, the road operations manager, and Steve Bricker both will do a presentation highlighting the impacts of the road fund, where we are right now, where we're headed based off of the funding forecast that we have, what decisions we'll need to make, and potentially changes in services as a result of that funding and then the need of the system.
Yes.
A question. Jennifer, when they do the forecast at future state, based on, you say, the funding, will there be a comparison with the current funding and or with a potentiality of additional funding? What could be done?
The second to the last item will talk about the potential funding out of the TBD and what could be done with that. This item will talk about where we're headed based off of what the plan is right now for funding and what we can do with that.
Okay, so it looks like C will answer my question.
So,
Thank you.
Okay, then we would be on to 3C, which is Tbd Funding Options.
yes, so this will give just a real brief history of the formation of the TBD, what it can do, the funding options that are available, and the revenue potential revenue that can be generated by it, from it.
I'm good.
Will the presentation cover what I've had a discussion with Ramiro about regarding we've had a couple of public comment about citizens believing that this TBD must dissolve if it's not collecting revenue and acting in a certain fashion. I've had discussions with county manager about the statute and how that operates, and he's described that there's sort of two ways that the TBD can move forward in order for operations and maintenance versus being funded for a specific project.
Sure.
And he feels the citizen was getting confused that, you know, if it's funded for a specific project, your specific project is completed, you typically would dissolve the TBD. If you're using it for potential operations maintenance, that there wouldn't be a completion because that's ongoing, and therefore the TBD. I was just wondering if that piece of it would be covered in 3C.
I can absolutely add that.
Just in case the folks are
Absolutely.
listening who are concerned about that. Thank you. Then 3D is director's report.
Yes, so that's just it'll be a summary of kind of what you've heard and then where we want to go from here with the meetings. So we're addressing a couple of items that were addressed in 2018 and revisiting those to kind of bring the new board up to speed. And we've got some ideas of where we wanted to go, but we also want to get some feedback from the board of what they would like to see.
Okay, any comments on that?
I do have one question, just as we get towards the end. And then I see, are we anticipating this is going to go for an hour and 20 minutes then at 5 o'clock? Is that what your agenda is calling for?
Yes, it could be done sooner, but that's
Okay.
what we have it set for.
Okay. There's a possibility, that's all.
Okay.
Anything else on 3D?
No.
Okay, that's it. Adjournment. Thank you, Jennifer.
All right, now we're going to move on to the review the BoCC draft agenda for next Tuesday, April 23rd, 2019. And at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we'll call the meeting to order and Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Menser. Approval of the agenda and the minutes, and an opportunity to address the public, and this may be premature. Yes, sir. Oh, yes.
Could we go back to the previous item, Commissioners?
TBD?
No, the previous items related to the increase
the
on
courthouse?
the contract for the courthouse. So looking at the numbers, so there's the budget amount that you included for this project is $400,000 for 2019. So the contract meets that. However, what is not included is Rick's salary on that. because the portions of his salary related to the courthouse needs to be included on the budget amount. So we are going to request the board on the first budget quarter amendment to increase that amount, the budget amount, using the REIT 1 to cover his salaries, portion of his salary.
Okay.
I guess so what we're up against here is we've got a budgeted amount up to the 400,000. We just don't have enough for the 20%. Is that, that goes above that? Is that it?
So what I like to do at this point is eliminate the 20% for your action.
And then it's covered, is that it? And then we'll do something in the future? to
Yeah,
make
we'll
up
do something in the future
some
to
shortfall?
cover a Rick's salary.
Okay.
But at this point, I recommend to eliminate the additional 20%.
You got that, Law? Thank you. Anything further? Have you conferred with Rick about his salary? You might have a differing opinion. Perhaps not.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Yes, thank you for the follow-up. Back to April 23rd, next Tuesday, opportunity to address the public. Again, a bit early. We'll see what comes up, unless you have something, Romero. Or commissioners. Do you have anything that the public might come in next week for?
Well, I think things are going to start getting active about probably courthouse discussion and such. You know.
Oh, other issues are always coming up. And then number 2, county manager's update.
I will follow up on any public testimony that you might receive today, Commissioners.
So currently, then we move on to number 3 on the agenda, consent items. And again, currently it's just A and B, and A is a PHSS resolution.
Yeah, this is a, for your consideration, the creation of a new position and also the elimination of an existing position. This is somewhat of an unusual step, but let me tell you why. Currently, this individual who is holding the position, Social Services Specialist number 3, is planning to retire June 30th, 2019. And the department has gone through the process of assessing what is the actual right classification that needs to be in place after this individual retires on June 30th. So that's what you see, the overlap of the request is to create the program manager position and also to abolish the program specialist number 3 effective June 30th, 2019 after that individual retires from that position. So it really is just the overlap right now so we can start recruiting for the right classification when this individual retires. This action has it goes as the salary from $7,766 to $7,601. Okay. Is a decrease of $138 or a decrease of 2%.
So as soon as you say elimination of a position, everybody raises an eyebrow.
No,
it's someone's retiring.
It's the overlap right now that we're going through, making sure that we're going through the process to hire the new individual on the right classification. And as soon as that individual retires from the current position on June 30th, that position will be eliminated. That's the action before you.
So these 2 positions, program manager, social services program specialist, are they doing similar work or is
So
this kind of?
So what has happened, the individual holding this social services program specialist 3 over the years have grown in activities, in functions. That really is somewhat outside of what the current classification is. So the program manager really encompasses what this individual is currently doing. So we're just aligning to the right set of activities this individual is doing. And I don't want to use any names at this point, but I think you can assess who that is.
Mm-hmm. Anything further?
Just maybe one
Yeah.
question. Would you be hiring a manager person into a new position or promoting somebody from within maybe into that position and hiring a new entry FTE?
So the new position, the program manager position, will be advertised. And whether it's somebody from the outside or internal promotion,
That yet to be
that's
determined?
yet to be determined.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And consent item letter B is the vouchers, and we'll get to that later in the week then. Department item, agenda item number 4, auditor's
Commissioner?
office. Yes?
Could we have a 5-minute break?
Yes, certainly.
The sheriff's office is.
Yes, we're going to take a 5-minute break. We're in recess for... Okay, let's take 10 minutes. We'll do it early. 10-minute break. Be back at 9:36. All right, welcome back from our 10-minute recess. Where we left off, I believe, was department item number 4, the auditor's office for a sorter.
Yes, Commissioners, for your consideration is for you to authorize the auditor to upgrade the ballot sorting machine that is located on the ballot center in the Mudman area for $104,760. That is included in the budget and has some reimbursement by the state as well. I do have a call to the auditor's office for them to help me understand what is the procurement process they're planning to use to purchase this. So I will bring those answers to you next week when you review this agenda item again.
Anything?
No, sir.
Anything?
Is it still going to be that cool long table that shoots the
Well, hopefully a little
ballots?
more automated, but yeah, it's just about the same.
I would hate to see it be some kind of box that you can't see it,
Okay.
because that's really a pretty cool machine.
Yeah.
Ramiro, did you say this is state reimbursed?
Yeah, it's a combination of
A combo. So the state is
Import.
kicking some money into elections.
some, yeah.
Some, like chipping in for gas, but not. Okay.
Got it.
Agenda item number 5, emergency services. Kurt Harden's going to talk about what the expedition vehicle.
For your consideration, Commissioners, this is for you to consider authorizing the Director of Emergency Services to execute and sign an agreement to purchase a new vehicle at a cost of $55,572 plus 10%. And this vehicle has reached the useful life is since so the operating costs, the maintenance costs are taking a toll on this particular vehicle, and it is time for replacement. So as you can see, this is a $55,572 plus 10%, because Medic One vehicles are not part of the ER&R program. If you consider this item, I will be engaging Kurt Harding, the director, to see the opportunities that perhaps to bring those Medic One vehicles as part of the replacement schedule that we have for all the fleet vehicles in the county. Anyways, any questions for Kurt?
Questions?
We got a budget for this.
It is
already here.
budgeted. It is budgeted. I think that my comment to bring it into the ER&R is more of a long term. And the purpose of the ER&R program is you put a certain dollar amount every year to avoid the big expenditure when you need to replace a vehicle. So you put in savings in a way by a specific vehicle. So when you get to the process of purchasing and replacing the vehicle, you don't face that one-time expenditure. That is the purpose of the ER&R program.
And I can add a little bit to that. Kurt Harden, Director of Emergency Services. Historically, Medic One has purchased equipment and vehicles at the time that they are phased out or replaced. What we've done is we've already developed all the requirements for all equipment within Medic One for an ER&R fund. In other words, we've already identified all that. We've already identified what it would take annually just to put into the ER&R fund. So we are ready to implement that. And so we've already started that process, and I have to brief the county manager on it and obviously the county budget officer. But we're ready to, I would say, within the next 6 to 8 weeks to be able to have that in place and be able to brief the county commissioners. Because we realize this causes a huge jump in the budget whenever we do replacement equipment. And we're going through a tremendous amount of replacement equipment because we have aging equipment within the fleet.
Anything else?
I guess one other question. How many vehicles do you have in that fleet?
We have, we're surplusing one currently, so we have 12 medic units. We have MA1 and MA2, which are a paramedic and an EMT vehicle that goes out and does our routine support of the medic units and the EMT vehicles, but also they're used as a surge capacity in case we have a catastrophic disaster, as an example. And then we have administrative vehicles. We have 3 administrative vehicles on top of that.
So we'll probably be looking at including all of those vehicles in our current ER&R process?
In a ER&R process, correct. We're looking at identifying not only that, but all of our medical equipment. We have monitors that we need to replace. We may be replacing in the near future, our AEDs, 500 AEDs across the county. So there's a whole slew of equipment identifications that we've done for replacement, and we're going to put those in the ER&R plan as well.
And the executive board has already been up to speed on this? I mean,
Yes. Yeah, the EMS council's been briefed.
Okay.
They are well supportive of it. We're just trying to work out the final details, but we've already identified the cost, the replacement costs for all these medical equipment across the county, including the vehicles.
And so it'll be in the same replacement schedule as, say, the ambulances and
Correct. Yes. Yes,
other
sir.
units that you supervise?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the council is already up on this?
They're up on that. In
Thank
fact, they were hoping to see this happen 3 years ago, but we've been trying to get through a number of different areas, and this is one of the priorities for this year.
Thank you very much.
And you're on the council, aren't you?
Yes.
David?
And that's actually where I was going with this, to let the public know that there
Yeah.
is oversight from all other jurisdictions associated with this, and they're in support of doing this.
Okay, no questions.
My question is, with the surplus of this vehicle, does this actually go to auction then, or do you keep it on standby as a throwdown for parting it out, Frankensteining, or for emergency purposes?
It is a scary vehicle to drive right now, but anyway, I will tell you that what we do is we offer it up to the fire agencies within Thurston County, since Medic One is a countywide funding source. So if none of the fire agencies within Thurston County will accept this vehicle, then it goes through the normal county surplus process.
Which eventually is auctioned.
Yeah, auction. I get auctioned, or however they do the surplusing through central services.
Okay, thank you. That's it, thank you, Kurt.
Thank you.
Number 6 on the agenda for next week is Public Works, letter A, Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is a follow-up to the familiar project. And right now, I do have later on your agenda on a specific item where staff will give you additional details as to where we are on that project. And this is the project related to the Chehalis Western Trail, just south of Yelm Highway, just about 2 miles south, where the trail ends and it makes a hard turn, and it's a gravel path, as you know, gets us into Rainier Road for maybe 600 feet, and then picks up the trail again. So this particular project avoids that, because the gravel portion of the Chehalis Western Trail, the county doesn't own that. It's part of the BNSF easement and right-of-way. So there is some concerns by the railroad that perhaps individuals are jumping over the berm where the tracks are located, creating a safety issue. So this particular project, what it does is goes a tunnel under the railroad tracks, and eventually will make a logical connection and avoiding going to the Rainier Road. You've been familiar with this project, Commissioner Hutchins, Commissioner Edwards, and hopefully later on the agenda I can give you additional feedback for Commissioner Menser. So this item includes a specific dollar amount of this contract, and again, we'll give you additional information later on the agenda today.
Gary.
It seems like I remember in prior discussions on this, we were more around 900 and some thousand.
Same question.
So what has taken place here?
It is an increase on the dollar amount that you had. It was a preliminary dollar amount. Now the Burlington Northern Santa Fe is the one who conducts the construction and conducts all that work within the railroad right-of-way. We have received new information, and that is the purpose of this item, is to give you additional perspective on the new numbers of that. Without giving you the punchline of the upcoming item on your agenda, we do have budget, because there was a budget allocated back in 2018 that was not spent. So it will be carryover into 2019, and that way we'll cover that dollar amount, the $1.3 million.
And this is REIT funds?
It's a combination of REIT as well as the park impact fees. So there is not a general fund.
Are we going to go over in some kind of a briefing session? I mean, that's a considerable amount of money. We're talking about $500,000.
That is
more.
item number 1 later on your agenda.
Okay.
Ty?
That was the question I had. So.
And this is a major safety issue for our citizens that are recreating.
Right.
On the trails, okay. All right, thank you. 5.
And
I'm
I
sorry.
will review the action before you take a consideration next week. Revise.
Agenda item 6B, easement on Albany Street.
This is related to the stormwater project on the Little Rock and Albany Street. And as a result, back in 1982, the county secured a drainage easement on one of the nearby properties. And that was for the purpose of managing the stormwater of this particular intersection. So we are on their way to do additional stormwater improvements on this location where we no longer need the easement, drainage easement that was acquired in 1982. So this particular item for you is to consider releasing that easement, and that goes back to the underlying property owner. And that is the intent of this.
Go ahead.
So have we solved that particular problem that the county acquired an easement for in 1982? I mean, is the project done and we know that the spillway is it's going to go elsewhere?
Yeah, it goes to a pond.
It's a finished item. We're not speculating.
No. No, we're not speculating. We no longer need this easement because the improvements that we conducted already avoids getting into that easement.
And they're sufficient. We're in good shape.
We're in good shape.
Sounds straightforward. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Agenda item number 7, the CPED, Stream Flow Restoration Planning Grant.
Commissioners, this is related to the Hearst decision fix. The legislature passed last year, and that's related to RCW 9094. As you know, as part of the Hearst fix, local jurisdictions will continue to permit conduct permits on domestic groundwater withdrawal for exempt wells. It also requires for the county to participate on what we call is the water resource inventory areas, WIRAs. And we have 4 in the county. One is in Nisqually, the Deschutes, the Kennedy, Goldsboro, and the Chehalis WIRAs, where we need to participate to develop what we call a mitigation plan for each of the watersheds as a result of the Hearst decision. Yeah, early in the year, you had a briefing on the Nisqually WIRA in which you authorized the director of CPED to go ahead and submit the draft to the Department of Ecology, and that has been completed. And also, I believe this Thursday, no, tomorrow, you will have a briefing on the WIRA 13, which is at the Deschutes. Each of those WIRAs has a different timelines, as you may recall, as to when the mitigation plan needs to be in place, and so everyone is working on meeting those deadlines. This particular action before you is to accept a grant from Ecology for $260,700 to help us cover the cost of participating on the different WIRAs.
So this is about,
excuse
me.
over here.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
So this is about accepting money. So I don't have to ask you where it's coming from.
No.
How does that work?
It comes from the state.
Yeah, okay, but I'm curious
Yeah.
how that works, that we can put in for 20% more. I'm curious what the 20% denotes
So
here.
the 20%, what it does is just in the event the DOE, the Department of Ecology, releases additional funding, we don't need to come back to you to have another action item. It gives the flexibility for the director to accept additional money up to additional 20%.
We don't usually object to accepting money to further our
Yeah.
plans. I guess I'd even ask why it says 20%. Why not make it, I'll accept 80% more? I mean, if that's what it takes. I mean,
Baby steps, Commissioner.
okay, I mean, are we anticipating that we might get more money to deal with this?
We might, but it will be
technical
unlikely
question.
that we'll get 80% more.
But it's a good technical question, 'cause I was reading it as, if we spend the 260.7, then anything over and above that would come out of our coffers up to
That's what
20%.
No, no.
So it's accepting from the state more, yeah, so I don't, yeah, why not put
We can
100?
accept more. Sometimes we go 25%, on some of these budgetary items, so, okay, I'm good.
Trying to be consistent, commissioners.
Okay, thank you.
And the 2019 docket, 7B.
This is for your consideration. You do have a briefing, I believe, next week, or this week? Oh, this is I'm sorry, this is for you to take a formal action on the development code docket that you already approved.
Are we going to talk about more on this prior to Tuesday before we decide or not decide?
I believe you already decided on the direction, on
This is where we went
on the
through.
development code docket, not on the comprehensive plan docket.
Okay.
This is where we went through them at the planning session.
That is right.
And you had proposed a particular approach to make it clear to the public that we didn't all agree on each item.
Yeah, I do have an
And I don't
approach
remember
as to
exactly
how
what-
we're going to be, after the staff presents the item to you, I will highlight all the many different items that you voted differently to include on the development code docket. And I believe the nay on some of the items that perhaps Commissioner Messer voted was not necessarily against the particular item. It was mainly related to a concern that he had on the workload that he was imposing to staff. So I will facilitate that, and I'll give a little bit of feedback as to your decision-making process that you did on the planning session. Yes.
And when will you do that, Romero? When will you
Next
do that?
Tuesday.
Next Tuesday morning?
23rd.
No, in the afternoon.
In the afternoon? Okay.
I'm sorry, what else do you need for this item?
Just reminders.
And the staff is here to walk you through if you like.
Well, we have Josh Cummings and his band of renown here. Does anybody have questions? I don't want to get into the meat of it right now.
I mean, we can provide any information that you like before you make a decision.
Because it was an extensive list, as I
Yeah,
recall.
would you like to see the list, or? I guess
Sure, if we're going to vote on something.
Just run through the list, just by name, if you don't mind, or
Okay.
topic.
Yeah.
That would help me out. Between the development code, which we're voting on, that's the one. We're not voting on the comp right now, I don't need to know that. Just the list on the development code document.
Yes, sir.
Amendments. Does that help you?
Sure.
Good, I don't want to be alone.
So let me load that information that is attached to the agenda. I will read this for you.
And I do mean band of renown. And for those of you watching at home,
Yeah, yes.
there's no technical difficulties. You're going to hear silence until we get an answer.
So what you approve and for your consideration, it will be the item A5, that is the review of administrative variances, the limits in zoning ordinances. Also, you review the low impact development standards. That will be item A7. Item A9 is amend the planned industrial park district to allow correctional facilities the special use, and that's related to the juvenile corrections facilities and the Grand Mountain area. Item A16, amend zoning ordinances to add a site plan review process for single-family residential other permits and review vesting on all other permits. Item A17, that's an item related to plat extension included on Title 18, planning and subdivisions. Item A6, that's the critical area ordinance revisions to ensure consistency with the shoreline management plan. Item A13, that's a normal process to correct miscellaneous clerical errors. Item A15, change the name of Chapter 2.60, Violations and Enforcement Administrative Procedures. And then you have interjurisdictional planning requests, which is JP1, the annual impact fee code to add impact fees to the North Thurston School District. JP2, item JP2, update the Tumwater UJ zoning ordinance to be consistent with the city zoning ordinance. JP3, update the Lacey UJ zoning ordinance to be consistent with the city zoning ordinance. And JP4, update the Olympia UGA's zoning ordinance to be consistent with the city zoning ordinance.
Perfect. Any questions?
And that's the items that you
And those are the ones that got through.
yes.
A couple didn't pass the vote,
And
right?
what I'll do next Tuesday afternoon, I will go through each of those items, and I will outline how you voted on those particular items.
Good, that was helpful for me. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Gary.
Does any of this cover 15th off of Slater Kinney? And maybe it's all done. Does that ring a bell with you? I've had a constituent contact me about.
Northeast,
Yeah, Slater Kinney.
I mean, up by the school.
Well, it's up past the school, and
Yeah.
15th going out towards Carpenter.
Okay.
Is any of this in
It
relation
really,
to that? Do you
it
know?
really does not ring a bell, this item, Commissioner.
Okay. And then there was one other, and that was consistency on the shoreline management. I'm trying to do this all without having it in front of me.
Well, it is included
Yeah,
in your.
yeah. On consistency on shoreline management, are we voting on changes on shoreline management yet, or just to continue the process?
It's just the consistency, and staff can probably give you additional information. You may remember, it's just a matter of aligning all the
Okay,
different
we've still got
elements.
citizen input coming
Yeah.
in, and we
Oh,
haven't.
yeah, so you're not taking an action on the shoreline management plan. That is a
Okay,
different action.
that
It's
was-
just aligning everything together with all the different actions.
And this is what we discussed a couple weeks ago.
Yes, on a planning session.
Yes.
And I will
Okay.
highlight, when you discuss it, and I will highlight each item as to how you decided to move forward.
And does the community have, I mean, I don't have it in front of me, does the community have the ability to have
Yeah,
that in front of them?
everything is online, available
okay.
to the citizens who wants to look into the items.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you
Did
for
I miss
taking the time
anything?
to look it up and finding it. Nothing to add? Okay, good. Thank you. You're done? Good. We're moving on then. Agenda item number 8 is commissioners and county manager items.
Yeah, this item it was expected for you to consider and have a discussion today. This related to the procurement policy. However, the staff and the legal counsel is not ready yet, so this item has been moved to next Tuesday, and Robin can give you additional information on this.
And then we have a chance to spout off, and then the county manager reviews our agenda, and then we adjourn that day. And then right after that, at 5:30 in the afternoon on the 23rd, we go into a public hearing regarding ordinance regarding regular property taxes.
Yeah, this is the public ordinance. The public meeting is for you to receive public testimony for a proposed ordinance that you might consider putting for a vote on the ballot measure, either on August 6th, November 5th, 2018, or February 11th, 2018. And this is to a proposition authorizing the county to levy the regular property taxes in excess of the limitations outlined on RCW 8455. And also to set forth a ballot proposition for the voters to approve. This particular measure, we'll give you additional feedback as a staff presentation, includes a 47 cents, additional 47 cents per 1,000 valuation. And that is within the limits of $1.80 per 1,000 valuation.
Anything? Go ahead, Gary.
How close does that bring us to the $1.80 maximum? If we impose 47 cents, is that going to lock us up for quite a period of time?
No,
Get maxed out?
as you may recall, the bond council made a stress test of the financial strategy. That report was provided to you and other stakeholders on one of the project team meetings. And this particular request does not get to the maximum of the $1.80. Right now, I believe we're in the 122 or thereabouts valuation, so the additional 47 cents, it still has capacity before it gets to the $1.80.
I mean, not a lot, but some.
No, it is.
It's getting close, isn't it?
But the intent of the stress test is to make sure, as you may recall, that we weather the potential recessions that we might see. And even with those recessions, we will still have a small capacity within the $1.80.
So we'll have about 11 cents or something left,
Right,
something like that?
yeah, roughly.
Should we need to do anything in the future, unforeseen, that we don't know about, that we need to go to the citizens, is that about all we're going to have left for a 25-year period, is 11 cents? Is that kind of about where it goes?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Okay. Now, just to follow up on the going back to the 400,000 that we're bumping from 300 to 400, and it had to do with an FTE's pay, I think, part of it. Where are we going to be on making that decision? Is that kind of part and parcel of what we might or might not do after the public hearing on the 23rd? And where I'm going with this, are we getting the cart before the horse on the 400,000 plus 20? Because after we have the public hearing, we're going to make some decisions. I don't know what's going to happen, but we're going to have public input. Then we're going to make some decisions. So what I'm asking about, and I'm not clarifying this very well, I'm sure, but the 400,000 that we're asked to bump up, which is 100,000 more than it was, plus 20%. If for an example, if we decided not to move forward on the whole project for a period of time, would we still need that 100,000 increase no matter what?
That is correct.
Yes.
So we're going to be, we're not under a time frame then on this particular issue. It won't benefit us to wait until after we have this public hearing to make the decision that's coming up today.
Is a parallel process that you see. Is they're not necessarily related. They're part of the overall project, but this the item of the contract amount that you may be considered up into $400,000 is not predicated on this particular item that you may take an action on.
Right. Yeah. Go ahead,
It's
Ron.
part of the same project, but there is not tied between the two items.
We took a careful review of the contract, and we ensured that anything that is construction related or preparation for construction or work on the site is not happening until after there is a public vote, beyond this public hearing. The types of things we're paying for in advance are things like assistance with communication.
The survey.
It's the survey. It's the education pieces. It's things that we have to do in order to prepare.
Okay, well, I guess let me put it this way. After we have a public hearing on the 22nd, this board is
23rd. On the
23rd?
Yeah.
Yeah, on the 23rd. This board might be making a decision about which way we're going to go on this. And
As for the ballot date.
as a ballot date, that's right. But, I mean, I can tell you, if I get a lot of public input from the public that says they disagree with it, if everybody comes in and says they agree, that's one thing. Everybody comes in and says they disagree, it's going to affect my vote on how I'm going to represent the public.
That's the purpose of the public hearing.
Yes, that's the purpose of the public hearing. I just don't want to spend the extra $100,000 today, authorize the extra $100,000, if I'm not going to vote in the affirmative after the public hearing. So I'm just trying to align those two.
Yeah, and those two items are not related because the additional budget amount that you may consider up in the contract is for all the activities the consultant is already doing.
Okay.
Is already doing in terms of conducting the survey, which you will have a briefing on that coming up. The rendering of the artist rendering that you receive as to how a potential image of the site will be. I believe you have a copy of that. And also the additional one-page flyer, educational aspect, that's what we're paying with additional contract. So we're going to be obligated to pay that no matter what, whether you take an action or not on putting on the ballot measure.
That basically was my concern. And then I'd ask one other question that's maybe a follow-up what Commissioner Menser brought forward the other day, and I don't know if how this fits in, but the parking garage, for an example, we're talking about a 100-year parking garage that maybe we don't need. Are we going to, is there any chance that we might revisit alternative uses of that particular facility if it came to pass that we didn't need it? So I don't know if you know where I'm going on that, but you mentioned something about technology moving forward, maybe.
Yeah. Well, to me, that's we get to design phase. I will be very interested in how any structure we build could potentially be repurposed.
Okay.
If we don't need it. So yeah, but we're not there yet.
No,
We're not, and this is,
we're not at that point yet.
design is not
It's
what
not
this
part of-
contract
not
is
germane to
about.
this.
Okay,
And I
good.
want to ask a follow-up to his question. I mean, we're not, by the $100,000 additional, we're authorizing that. We're not saying we're going to spend that. If we were to, if we were to say that we're not building a courthouse, we would stop any additional work and we could do that, right? The action today is to basically just authorize it. And and you've explained that there are some things that that would have to be paid.
It's already have to pay.
But there's other things that we may do that we may not decide to do.
Yeah, may not, yeah.
Okay.
But again, that's a good point. It's just a matter of clarification for the public, because that is a good point that you're raising in terms of the parking and everything else. And at this point, what you see the rendering, which includes a parking structure, is just the space analysis. The space analysis about the need and how that need translates on a dollar amount of this project, which is about $250 million, as you know. So when we get to the point when if the board is approved and we get into the design elements, absolutely. That's when the decision is specifically as to how the parking structure should be, how many will be, what will be the projection of the overall fleet in the nation, whether it's going to be changing electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles. All that needs to be part of the conversation before a final design is implemented.
Okay.
And while you bring up the concern of putting the cart before the horse, it sounds like the design, spatial, the project needs, the actual, all that intricacy is putting the cart before the horse. We're just setting a public hearing.
Sure.
So just to kind of recap, and I want to make sure I get it right, the public hearing for April 23rd is to allow the public to come in and show support or non-support or excitement or ambivalence as to whether the ballot measure goes in the August ballot of this year, November ballot of this year, or February ballot of next year for the purpose of constructing a new courthouse and regional administrative building. Is that the bottom line?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or it doesn't go on the ballot at all. They could certainly
Yeah, there's always that
express
option.
position.
Well, that's
Well,
true, yeah.
no, the option is they do nothing. You always have that option as a commissioner. They do nothing.
yeah.
And they do nothing is not continue with the process. From the administrative point of view, I just want to align all the different steps that you need so you have as many options that you have available to you. And that is the timeline that I have planned for you. And it's predicated on if you choose to go on August, at least the timelines are such that you have that ability. That is the point of having the public hearing and lining up the different steps that you need to take, or we need to take for you to make the decision.
But your comments and questions and concerns are valid. They're valid. but that's subsequent to next week.
Cart
Yeah, and
before the
we,
horse, maybe.
we have already started receiving some written testimony on this, so.
Yeah, but it's good information. The public want to know this stuff,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
And we'll give you a staff report on pre-board that you consider a public hearing. And considering that perhaps we're going to have a significant amount of verbal testimony that come your way, we already working on room 152 as an overflow, and we'll make sure that we have all the TVs working so the public who is on 152 has the option to hear all the many different testimonies.
Good, okay. Anything further on that one?
No.
Good. So then we'll conclude the public hearing with or without a decision one way or the other. Next on this agenda today is the Proclamations and Awards. And La Bonita Bomar.
Yes, sir. La Bonita again. I don't have any boards and commissions for review today. As we have
Yay.
already gone over, the proclamation that we're going to be hearing will be Earth Day. And Ralph Monroe and students will be here. I'm not certain how many. And Eli Sterling. On this list, you will see that scheduled for the agenda of April 30th is Bicycle Commuter Month. Duncan Green from Interstate Transit will be here to accept the proclamation, along with Chris Hawkins from Public Health and Social Services. He's our biker guru.
Bicyclist.
Yes, our bicyclist. On the list also, and these are potential ones, I haven't communicated with any outside people as to who was going to be here, and that's National Military Appreciation Month. And if we choose to do that, I was going to schedule it for April the 30th.
Because May is the month.
May is the month.
Do you need a list of folks? Do you want that? You're not soliciting that now, but you would like that information?
Yes. I
Because
would like
obviously-
it. I don't need it right now, but I would like to know if you have anybody specifically that you would like to attend the meeting, so I can make sure and give them.
Yeah, even maybe your assistants can help in recruiting
Yeah, and
individuals.
that's an
that want
easy
to come.
list,
Yes.
from the Veteran Services Hub to our local HR,
Yes.
veteran folks as well, yeah.
I believe there is a chapter of the American Legion in Rochester, and we are having a meeting in Rochester on that particular day.
Oh,
I
that's a
believe.
great
Oh,
idea.
yeah.
So maybe we could
Yeah.
include those folks in this proclamation.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
And the Tenino VFW, because they're actively involved as well. I forgot that, yeah, that's down there.
Thank you. Also, Public Service Recognition Week, you will see on your list, is May 5th through the 10th. And the Human Services Interim Director will be here for that particular one. They're in the process of working on that proclamation right now. Law Enforcement Recognition Week, last year, of course, we had members from the Sheriff's Office, and I believe someone from Lacey. I'll have to check on that, but if you have any other names that you would like for me to invite, please let me know.
I'm going to back up one to the National Military, and I would add Dallas Roberts. That's Denny Heck's staff, local staff member. I know Denny's big on this as well, and maybe he would attend.
Thank you.
For you, for Denny Heck to attend, or?
Well, Denny, if he's available, but if not, at least Dallas representing Denny.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Law Enforcement, Emergency Medical Services Week. Kurt Harden is in the process of preparing his proclamation, and he will be here for that. And then the National Public Works Week, the Public Works Department has presented a draft proclamation, and their director, Jennifer Walker, will be here, and I'm certain she'll have maybe some other staff that will be here for that. Those are all the proclamations that I have scheduled for the month of May at this time.
I still have lots of signatures left in the pen.
Well, as you can see, we are not having 5 on one day. We have spread them out.
Wise counsel, wise
Yes.
decision.
Yes, thank you.
Hey, go ahead, questions or comments on proclamations?
No, got it. Thank
Got
you.
it. Thank you,
Good.
Bob. Advisory boards, commissions, yeah, wipe that off. PIO check-in. Our opportunity to address the PIO and our needs or questions or comments or concerns.
Good morning, Commissioners. Megan Porter, Public Information Supervisor. I did want to give you two brief updates. One, Romero had already talked about the off-site Board of County Commissioners meeting on April 30th at 5:30 at the Rochester Middle School Commons. The news release went out about that yesterday, and Brian will be placing flyers down in that area tomorrow, I believe. So we'll be trying to get the word out a bit more about that. It's been out on social media as well. We'll post it again closer to the date. And then I've been working with the Evergreen Master's students that I had talked about, the panel discussion with our Public Works, Community Planning and Economic Development, and Public Health directors about water. We've scheduled that for May 23rd from 4 to 6 p.m. I'll send that out to you and let you know that just was finalized late last week. And we will be advertising that out to the public as well. The focus is on the college students, but we will be, there will be space available if anybody from the public would like to attend that.
Can you remind me, it's a panel discussion?
Panel discussion.
Who's the panel?
The panel is Jennifer Walker, Public Works Director, Joshua Cummings, the Community Planning and Economic Development Director, and then Shelley Slaughter, the Public Health and Social Services Director. And they'll be talking about water quality, water quantity, and stormwater.
Location is where?
It's at the Evergreen State College. We don't have a room yet, but once that's finalized, we'll get all the advertising material together and send that out. And I'll make sure that I get an appointment out to you guys as well on the master calendar, if you're interested in attending.
I am. Thank you. It's right down the street, so I could walk.
Hey, Gary.
Anything
Was
from me?
that it?
That was all from me, if you have anything for me.
Go ahead.
Do we have a breakdown yet on the survey? On what I'm particularly looking for is those citizens that were contacted by phone versus others, whether it's mail-in or on the net or.
Elway Research sent us a draft report, which we'll be reviewing and finalizing. Romero, I don't know if
You're talking about the validity
We're
of the
talking about the
survey?
survey.
I'm talking about a breakdown from
Yeah.
folks that were actually talked to versus those that may or may not have responded to a mail or gave input through the internet process.
Yeah, we just received it, so I haven't even had a
So
chance
you-
to
okay,
look
but I
at
mean,
it yet.
Can you at least ask that question if we can get that breakdown?
I'll look in the report and see if that's in there. I haven't had a chance
Well, I
to
talked about
review
how
it.
many were there. How many, I think there was 270 or something like that that were phones.
what
The
he's
others
asking?
were call-ins or something.
Yeah, so we received a more robust report, I
Oh,
think
you've
this
got a new-
morning.
you've
We
got
just,
another-
yeah, we just haven't
okay.
had an opportunity to review it yet, so.
Okay.
And you have a briefing on this next Thursday, the 25th. We'll walk you through the entire report.
Well, I'm going to put this in context. We're talking about the courthouse and regional administration building survey.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
And you're just wanting to know how many were phone and how many were online?
No, I want to know the results of those interviews of those
breakdown
individuals that did
versus-
online
Got
and maybe mail. I don't know how many other ways we received input. Those results and how they compared to the actual communication with a person. You know, somebody did a survey on the phone. What about this? What about that? I want to know how that compares to the internet side of it.
Okay. I'll make sure that, I'll see if that's in there, and if it's not, we'll talk to
Okay,
to
thank you.
Stuart Elway.
Is that it?
That's it.
Well, I was going to ask you about the advertising for the BoCC in Rochester, but you addressed that already. But I want to compliment your office, your PIO office, on the emails that we get regularly with updated information or press releases or articles that are relative to the county and the citizens that are going in or have been in any various newspaper. Because I don't take the TNN or some of the other, or TNT or some of the other outlying newspapers, but I do get the Olympian, but it's always a day late on online, and it's problematic, they're live stuff. So when I get those articles, I read them, and I get to see it right away. So that's very helpful to me, and I appreciate yours and Brian's work or effort on that
Thank you.
as well.
We get lots of feedback that that's a very valuable thing that we do so that people can see what's going on.
Do you get that? Now, that goes externally as well? Just internally?
It's just internal.
Good, good, yeah, very good. So thank you. And I have nothing further. Just looking forward to more work with Brian
Thanks.
on TCM. TCM, yeah, I got it right. Okay. Thank you. Briefing, public hearing decisions pending, nothing. Legislative update, Romero.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. So as you know, April 9th was the date in which the bills that needed to have a fiscal item needed to come out of committee. So the next cutoff date for the legislature is April 17, when bills have to pass the opposite house. Means if a bill has already passed one house, that's the deadline in which the other house needs to pass that particular bill or an amendment bill. After the April 17, then the legislature will most likely focus on debating and coming up with a combined budget discussion. The regular session for this year ends April 28th, and that was yet to be seen if it would require the special session following that. As you know, our number one priority, which is the court impact fees, the full amount was included on the governor's budget. Also, the full amount was included on the House version of the budget. And the Senate version included, but only $750,000 out of the per year out of the $1 million plus needed. But also on the House budget included just about $430,000 of extraordinary indigent defense. That's also a plus. Hopefully, that will materialize on the final budget as well. So with that, let me walk you through some of the bills that we have been tracking so far. Senate Bill 5503, which is the modifications of the on-site sewer system. And that has passed both houses and is on the governor's desk for signature. Just to give you a perspective on this, what it does is the summary of this bill gives the first priority for repairing and second priority for replacing existing conventional on-site sewer systems. Also,
are you open for discussion at all on some of these?
No, please do.
How would that affect, I'm just thinking of Summit Lake, for an example. Is it going to give people some kind of an option that they didn't have before to upgrade their existing system if it's less than perfect?
Yes, and in fact, this bill, what it does, at least from my review, is provide a little bit of relief to the individuals who use an on-site sewer system. And again, it gives the first priority to replace the existing system before getting to repair versus replacing as a whole. And also, it doesn't impose more stringent performance requirements as part of the on-site sewer systems. Also allows repairs on their system using the least expensive alternative that meets the standards. It is likely to provide comparable or better long-term sewage treatment to affluent dispersal outcomes. So, my interpretation of this bill, it really has an impact on local jurisdictions. They have a plan as to how they need to bring all those sewer system into all those on-site septic system into the sewer systems. So because at this point, as a first priority, we'll give the citizens within those areas to go with a repair and a replacement before they can be asked to connect to a sewer line.
Is this something that the citizens did not have available to them prior to this passage, or were we imposing maybe more stringent processes on the citizens and now they're going to have some leeway? I'm just trying to get how this,
So
what kind of a change this makes.
I
to
don't
citizens.
understand your question, Commissioner.
Well,
I think I understand his question.
But-
It's, I mean, certain cities, as I understand it, and I don't know which ones, but if your septic system was failing and you had the ability to connect to sewer, the city could require you to do that. This bill says it takes that mechanism away from the cities. It says you may not pass a rule, an ordinance that says if your septic system fails, you have to connect to sewer. You have to have the option as a citizen to upgrade, repair, deal with your septic, and keep it septic without being forced by a local jurisdiction, whether it's us or Olympia or whoever, to connect to sewer. That's one piece of it. There's
Yeah,
more.
that's one piece of it.
That's
Thank
one
you.
piece of it. There's more than that, but that's,
so,
Big piece.
yeah, that's the piece that
Big
jumped
piece,
out.
yeah.
but we're not requiring people to hook up to sewer.
We as a county, no.
we as a county, are
No,
we?
because we do not have a sewer system.
Right, so-
we have in Grand Mountain area, yes.
And have in the past, we required people to hook up?
No,
and
we
then-
don't have those requirements as far as I understand the Grand Mountain area.
So
It's
this
a-
isn't going to be a big impact on unincorporated areas of the Thurston County?
No, because we really don't have a large sewer system, and I think it's more impacts to more in the urban areas in the cities who have the sewer utility.
I guess the reason I'm going there, we've got this issue coming up about Summit Lake, wherever that goes. I've had concerns brought to me by citizens in the past that they would like to upgrade their own systems because it might be an old system, but they're afraid to contact government officials here in the courthouse because they fear they will be required to do
Red tagged. or something.
yeah, get red tagged or something, and then they're going to have a problem on their hands, and they don't have 25,000 to upgrade, but they might have 2,000 to put a new drain field or a new tank. Or
Yeah, this bill might give them that option.
is it going to give them some protection?
Well,
I guess.
so I cannot affirm that it's
Okay.
going to, but I can certainly tell you it may give them a flexibility.
At some point, could we get maybe a briefing by some of our staff that deal with on-site septic systems if this might give some people some leeway? Because I know I'm being specific to Summit Lake, but there are other areas where people are hesitant to call and ask for the ability to upgrade something, and consequently maybe they just have a 55-gallon barrel there.
So
or
what-
something.
what-
I want to encourage them to upgrade their system.
So what we could do is if and after this bill becomes into law, as any new law that we gets imposed to the county, we'll brief the commissioners as to how the law is going to be impacting the processes that we have in place. So we'll follow up with a
Okay.
briefing later. It's not going to be in the next 2 weeks.
No, but sometime
Just
down
saying.
the road.
If
Okay,
it passes.
thank you.
Anything?
Well, I just thought that what you're describing, isn't that sometimes happening in Henderson Inlet? where-
Yes, yes.
I don't know that it would affect Summit Lake, or it should, but the public perception might be
Might be that it is.
that it would affect
Well,
them.
actually, I did have one case, several from Henderson, one from Summit Lake about wanting to upgrade their system. They've got an old system that was built in the 50s or something like that. But they're afraid to contact our folks because are they going to be forced into some kind of a,
More than what they wanted.
yeah, more, they want to upgrade, but they don't have an unlimited pocketbook, and sometimes that's about what it costs.
And they perhaps want to upgrade, but it's not just because they want to upgrade.
Yeah.
But not because it's failing.
No, not
Yeah,
necessarily
but
failing,
they wanna open up
but
a
they
can
want
of
to make it
worms.
better. They want to be good
Yeah.
stewards of the lake, but they're afraid.
Yeah, but the upcoming conversation that you have related to Summit Lake is not related to a septic system.
I know,
It's
but
a
there's
special
that-
use district.
There is that innuendo that that's been the problem and whatnot, so
Okay, moving on.
we're good. Thank
So Senate Bill 5505, that's stormwater fees. As you may recall, this has passed both houses and is on the governor's desk for signature. This has a detrimental effect to the county because what this bill does is put a high threshold as to how we need to justify the impacts of stormwater associated with the state highways and the county stormwater system. And that, again, is going to be a very difficult threshold to meet, and potentially could have over $200,000 impact to the county.
Would that be an unfunded mandate then for us? I mean, they're going to force us to expend more dollars to do certain things?
No, we're not going to get over $200,000.
They're going to withhold some money.
Yeah, unless we justify what the purpose of that contribution is.
Okay.
But as you know, counties right away, states right away, it doesn't, it's just a line, imaginary line, and the surface water just migrates through the whole basin. And this particular bill, what it does, puts the onus on the jurisdiction to determine this particular right-of-way, the impacts of the state highways. We need to justify where the water goes for us to assess the impact and receive the stormwater fees. So this is not just an impact to Thurston County, it's impact across the counties. Sure. And it's disappointing because here again is another piece of legislature that benefits the state and puts a burden to the county, because at the end we need to continue to manage our stormwater regardless of this reporting or not. So extremely disappointed, at least myself, on this particular bill.
So it's not a matter of, or a question of the state highway impacting our runoff, it's how our runoff impacts their highway. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, because what we need to do is determine specifically how the stormwater generated by the state highways impact our overall.
Oh, by the state highway, okay,
Yeah.
okay, thank you. Got it, now I got it. Anything? All right, moving on.
House Bill 1497 that passed the Financial Public Health, so it is House Bill 1074, that is the tobacco purchase over 21 years old, also passed. Senate Bill 5986, that's a tax on vapor and heated tobacco products, passed the Senate Rules Committee and is moving to the floor for voting. State House Bill, substitute House Bill 1083, that's the trust fund for healthcare employees, passed both houses, passed the House and is moving to the Senate under Rules Committee. Substitute Senate Bill 5163, that's the wrongful death, as you may be tracking on this, passed both houses and is on the governor's desk for signature. Substitute Senate Bill 5380, the opioid use for disorder treatment, passed the Senate and is in the House for Rules Committee. And again, all those bills has a April 17 deadline in which they need to move out of. If a House already passed a similar bill, the other House needs to pass by April 17. So the next report will be a lot less, and I will inform you what bills have passed and or not. Substitute Senate Bill 5720, that's the treatment and evaluation for juveniles while in custody. It has passed the Senate, but it appears to be stuck in the House, and I think that bill could be dead. But I'll report back to you next week on that. Substitute Senate Bill 5063, that's the prepaid postage, stands for re-election, for elections. Passed both houses, is on the governor's desk for signature. House Bill 1441, financing for local infrastructure, where it creates a board that will allow smaller jurisdictions to access that through bonding and gives a capacity to build infrastructure. Passed the House and is in the Senate Rules Committee for further action. Substitute Senate Bill 5812, affordable housing related to ADUs. Passed the Senate and is already in the House Rules Committee for further action.
I have a question on that. How does that align with what we're trying to do on ADUs with our local code?
So what this allows more flexibility to include ADUs. So at this point, if this becomes law, they will incorporate whatever requirements of the ADUs into the steps that we're doing in our comp plan.
So, I mean, might this streamline the process that we're having to go through and allow us to do some things without that bureaucratic nightmare process we're involved
I
in?
cannot answer that question at this point, Commissioner. So as soon as the law is passed, we have to assess how
Okay.
that has an impact to the county. Then we'll brief the board on those terms.
Thank you.
House Bill 1406, that is the 1/10 of 1% of local sales tax to affordable and supporting housing. That has passed the House, is in the Senate Ways and Means Committee. So yesterday, Deborah Manguia and I worked on asking the Senate members of the Rules Committee to go ahead and support this particular bill, because this is a councilmatic action that you may take and is specific to affordable housing. But also this bill has a sunset date. You cannot just have a continued, I think it has a sunset date of 2026, if I'm not corrected. But I'll confirm that. But it does has a sunset date of this particular action, if you choose to.
Do we have kind of a guess as to what that would mean if it passes, what that would mean to Thurston County in revenue?
And related to
housing.
Thurston County, when we were looking at options of, and that can relate to the analysis that we had on the 1/10 of 1% of the sales tax when we're looking at TBD, I think it was generated close to $700,000. That may change since then. So that's probably a figure that probably could have an impact on this.
And I just wanted to clarify, it's not raising taxes on anyone, it's sweeping tax that would have gone to the state.
Yeah, thank you. It's from the top of the,
not a tax
what it goes to the
increase.
state. Yeah.
Yeah, not tax increase. And that compares, that approximate $700,000 of the county compares with what cities would get, which is over $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million for the same thing? No?
Could be.
Oh, you don't know?
You heard some comments yesterday, perhaps the Sierra Olympia, because they have the auto mall. Their sales tax, this could be close to over $2 million. But
Over $2 million,
that was
yeah.
just the,
That's the disparate amount between cities and counties regarding sales tax. That's just the nature of the beast. Yeah.
Being you bring up the auto mall, I thought that that sales tax amount goes to where the new registered owner lives on
Yeah,
that
we've been through that,
particular
yeah.
transaction.
Yep.
So,
And we asked, I'm sorry to cut you off,
No,
I don't
go
mean to cut you off, but when we discussed that last year even, so I brought that up, is Department of Revenue receives that information from the seller of the vehicle to show where the resident or the buyer lives, and that tax is supposed to be supposed to be forwarded to the proper jurisdiction. So even though it might say 9501, which shows Olympia, they actually know that whether it's county or city, and that goes from DOR to the treasurer, that money.
Right.
Did I miss something?
No.
I've asked about the accuracy of that information.
There are, so two-part answer. One, there are special rules that apply regarding the streamlined sales tax and destination sales tax rules. There are special rules that apply to vehicle sales. And then the second part of the question is, our treasurer should be doing a regular review of the automobile sales, specifically the auto sales, because they are large enough and there are these special rules to assure that Thurston County is getting its appropriate amount.
And I've been asked about that accuracy for a couple of years now, and I'm
Right.
told, rest assured, it's accurate.
It is extremely accurate.
Okay. And I thought there's a
The amount
potential.
that's coming to Thurston County from Department of Revenue is very accurate.
Okay, go ahead, Gary.
and I guess that brings me to the bump that we've talked about off and on and can't figure out exactly what the deal is, but because of retail internet sales and the point of delivery, the governmental entity getting benefit from that, I can't help but think that isn't as important as auto sales. And the reason I say that is because so many people are getting their items, they're not going to the retail outlet, they're getting it delivered. And so I think that accuracy is even more important now than it ever was. Because I really do think if you added up the amount of retail sales delivered to homes compared to automobile sales, where people go from their home and buy that at an auto mall, for an example, I can't help but think that your retail individual purchases of $10 or $50 or whatever they aren't adding up substantially in comparison to the sales tax generated at an auto mall. So that accuracy is ever more important, and I am not convinced that it's that good, but I'm skeptical about where
The
that
internet,
tax.
you're talking about the online
Yes,
sales, yeah.
Yeah, online sales. So I don't know, I'd like to have something presented to me that assures me that we are capturing that. And I have noticed on receipts that come by way of internet, and the address might say Yelm, but the person lives in the unincorporated area of Yelm, versus the address that says Yelm where there's been an annexation or not, and there's a difference. And so
Right.
I don't know how we
Oh, you
figured
bring up a
that
good,
out.
So
sorry,
I'd-
you bring
I'd
up a good
be,
point though, because I changed my home address, which says Olympia, but I'm unincorporated. I changed it to a P.O. box because of the lack of efficiency in the post office.
Well,
And that's a
that
Lacey
will
address.
confound
And that's a Lacey
things.
address.
Yeah, so
Yeah, that may confound things. the
how are
PO
we going to
box.
figure
But
this out? It's
What,
important.
what we have, and I'd be happy to share this with you again, is the form that the Department of Revenue uses doesn't just go by zip code, they don't just go by city, they go by actual address, and each address is in a zone, and each zone has the tax structure where that sales tax goes. So it's more refined than just city or zip code.
And the zones are scrupulous to city boundaries?
They are supposed to be, yes, I would say yes.
And you said there are special rules regarding vehicle sales.
There are, and I would have to
Okay.
brush up on those a bit. Again, it's been a while since I've looked at them.
Okay, so you don't know which way they go in terms of helping
They
us
are
or not helping us?
vehicles, so most things you pay a sales tax, and the tax is credited to the jurisdiction where you receive the good. So if I go shopping at a local downtown shop, like I like to shop at Archibald's, and I take the merchandise over the counter, walk out with it, the sales tax goes to the city of Olympia because I received that good in Olympia. However, if I buy a car, there are certain rules about where the tax goes. They're special rules. It's not as simple as it goes to where my address is, but it's also not where I received the car. So that's a little different. If I were buying lumber, like I rebuilt my deck a few years ago, and I had the lumber business that I worked with that was inside the Lacey city limits, delivered the lumber to my home in unincorporated county, the sales tax went to the county because I received that lumber at my home address. So it's certainly not a simple thing, but what the retailer is required to do is to record the place at which you took delivery of the good. And then cars have a special rules around them.
Okay, so if that's the case, then what are you guys worried about in terms of accuracy of the addresses?
If I buy something on Amazon, it doesn't come from Amazon, I mean, they ship it, but I'm buying from a third party, but it's shipped through Amazon. Who is the retailer that's reporting the delivery address, and then who verifies or validates whether it's jurisdictional, what jurisdiction it is.
So Amazon is a large retailer, and they record the sale at the place where you receive the good, which is at your home, certainly at my home, although for you, it's
I'm
at your
gonna change
post
that.
office box.
Yeah.
I would have to look into if you're using a PO box, but they record and then remit to the state the point at which you received the goods.
So you're
Right, so
telling,
but-
sorry.
But they have a way to validate whether it's Olympia unincorporated or Olympia City?
They go on your full address, not just your city, not just your zip code. They have zones created by address
Okay, and that's
that
what
they
you
have
asked
to
at first.
report on. And there's a form that the retailer has to fill out that has these various zones.
And that's jurisdictional line specific allegedly?
I believe so.
I'm with you,
yes.
I'm dodgy with about it, but.
But you're telling me that we have an incentive to tell our unincorporated shoppers to shop online, not go to downtown Olympia or Lacey or Tumwater and go to a local business,
That's probably right.
because we're
Actually,
taking
we do.
money, they're taking tax base away from their own people.
That's
I mean, their
true.
own jurisdiction.
Right,
Wow.
that's true.
Yeah, if that's their incentive.
My concern is the accuracy. The Archibald case that you talked about, following that on through, you walk out the door with the merchandise, you pay the city of Olympia rate of sales tax.
Right.
If you were to order that online from Archibald's and they shipped it to you, you pay the unincorporated sales
Tax rate.
tax rate. But if Archibald's isn't on top of things, and I contend that, not saying Archibald's aren't, but I'm saying that it becomes a pretty complicated process to make sure that your customer is actually a customer from the unincorporated area, because that's the only way we're going to get that tax benefit. Otherwise, it just goes right to the city of Olympia.
Wow.
And
But that is so difficult to resolve.
I know it's
Because
difficult,
it's
but
the-
I think
how-
we always need to be aware that the internet sales process has boomed so much, let's say in the last 10 years. This law was written well before that took place. I contend that they're not accurate. Every once in a while, the treasurer finds much more money than it costs to hire that FTE to locate that money. Only he does that on auto sales exclusively, is my understanding. And I'm saying I think we are missing the boat, because I think a lot of jurisdictions, I don't know, some of that internet sales goods might come from Nevada or Oregon. They don't even have any sales.
China.
I don't know where it's coming from, but it might not be accurate. That's my concern. I would like to, and I guess I'll take this on as a project of my own, because somebody told me this actually happened to them, and I'll go find out. I'll go
You
buy
really got that kind of time.
a 10.
Yeah, great.
Well, I'm gonna do this, a $10 item in town, and see what that rate is. You know, it's 8.8
9.8.
I'd have to
or
look
whatever it
at
is.
it, yes.
And then
Roughly
I'm gonna
that.
go and buy that same $10 worth just outside of town in the unincorporated area, and see if it shows on my sales slip that I got the break, and consequently it's gonna go to Thurston County, or if it didn't go to Tumwater or whatever, whichever
Right.
jurisdiction. I've had this explained to me by several folks that they feel we're taking a beating because of inaccurate reporting. And it's ever so more important now than it used to be, because of the volume keeps increasing on internet sales. And we've got somebody looking at automobile sales because we recognized there was a problem some years ago. I contend there's more internet sales as far as dollar amount that goes on in these jurisdictions over the internet than just the auto malls. I think it was a lot in its day, but I don't think it's the same percentage anymore. I think we've got, I don't know what the dollar amount is, but I think it's a lot.
Well, it's a complex tax structure, as you suggest. And so to have with the thousands of local stores, mom and pop stores and such, with the help that they hired, it's too complex for those employees. Okay, where exactly do you live? Which button am I going to hit for the sales tax?
But remember, if you're accepting the good
No,
over
no,
the
but if they're going to ship
counter,
it to me,
Yeah.
right,
if
to get that
shipping's a
right
different thing.
is
Yeah.
dubious. They don't have the time or staff or training to do that.
So are they getting the address right for shipping it to you? Do you receive it?
Yes.
Then they've got your address right.
that's all
And then
okay.
the trick is to transfer that, if you will,
Yeah.
into the report that goes to the Department of Revenue. But the vast, I would suggest, it's my perception, that the vast number of, the vast majority of mom and pop type stores are the type of stores where they hand you the good,
Right,
not
you're
where
right.
it's delivered.
And then
to you.
it's Olympia, let's just
That's
say.
right. It's just the jurisdiction that receives it is where
But if
that
they're
business
shipping it, then they're
is.
supposed to charge us
If
the
the-
rate at the jurisdiction they're shipping to.
It's correct.
And we're supposed to get the benefit of that.
But where does, and then, so I understand all that, where does this 8515 that you've talked
Okay, on
about?
sales tax, when the city of Olympia imposes $1 worth of sales tax on you when you make a purchase,
Or Lacey or Tumwater.
yeah, any municipality, 85 cents of that dollar goes to the municipality, 15 cents of that dollar goes to the county to run county government.
Regardless of where the
Regardless.
buyer lives?
Yeah, that has
Okay.
nothing to do with it.
Got it.
But if they make that purchase in the unincorporated area, the total dollar goes to the county government.
Got it.
And so if you have that delivered to you, that full amount goes to the county. It should go to the county. But if it's inappropriately credited to the municipal jurisdiction, then we only get 15 cents of that.
If the internet people aren't being
On top
of it.
Yeah. And what
Sellers.
Hutch has laid out is you've got personnel involved, and that bothers me that we're not tracking as good as we could. I mean, we find it at auto malls, so why wouldn't we find it at other retail sales?
So if you think about the volume of
It's the
sales at
volume
the
of sales.
auto mall,
Wow.
It's a lot.
and you think about the price of a vehicle at the
Yes.
auto mall,
Yeah.
I think that the difference that we were finding was a few $100s. It just wasn't a lot of money,
At the auto.
even for the car.
I remember you saying
Oh,
that,
so
yeah,
you
yeah.
mean to say the amount of money we were recovering was not paying for the FTE?
No, and we didn't expect it to.
Well, then that's another
Isn't that
issue.
crazy? Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
The FTE was needed for other reasons.
Yeah,
What
not
the
necessarily for that.
treasurer
Yeah.
told us was if we would fund the FTE, one of their duties would be to do that
I am
review.
just suspicious of technology delivering what they say they're going to deliver.
Well, and I agree with you that perhaps the accuracy of how the sales tax are imposed based on the delivery of the address may not be totally accurate. But getting to the point of resolving that issue will be almost impossible, because how many transactions do we have? How many businesses do we have? Billions and billions of dollars
I
that
know.
there is, and really is how the county can be somewhat of the auditor of those transactions will be almost impossible to put our hands
I
around.
guess what I would ask is, and I guess this is up to us to bring this, I'd like to have the Association of Counties, because it affects every county in the state, even over in Ponderay County, they're getting something delivered by UPS. It affects them. I would like to see the state association look at this and see if we can't be assured that it's being done right, because I don't feel it is done right, but.
And what's the authority for that 85-15% split?
That's
It's
just
still up.
state law.
So that state law could be
Right.
changed by the
That's
legislature, and
any-
so they could say that county government is
Yeah,
providing
yes, and
a
it
far
has
more
been.
proportion of services than
That
15%.
has been a discussion, but remember, there are only 39 counties and way more cities, and cities would be losing if they increase that
Oh, a
share
And
for
even goes
counties,
back
so.
to, at least from my point of view, the funding mechanism for counties is outdated. It's over 100 years old. The cities have way more means and methods to generate revenue, utility taxes and everything else. We don't have those options. We really don't have
The
those options.
Ruckle House study is supposed to address some of this when it comes out.
It will, I'm sure it will talk about the inequities.
Yeah.
Whether or not the legislature does.
We'll do anything about it is another
That's a
topic.
completely
Because
different
municipalities are going to be arguing against us.
Oh, absolutely hard.
Absolutely.
And they have in the past.
Oh, they have, very lovely.
So I feel good by the fact that if I go home, on the way home, I stop at Egan's to get a foot long, 15 cents of that $1 is coming back to the county. Right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
But if you tell Egan's to
Patriotic.
deliver that foot long,
Food delivery by alley.
can you please meet me at Yelm
Get the-
Highway?
yeah.
I don't think you guys deliver.
Well, that's a good point, the pizza joint.
What about Uber
And they-
Eats?
Yeah, they deliver all the time, the food stuff.
Oh, that's,
Jimmy
John's,
all that.
yeah, with the,
Whole other
the
issue.
whole Uber
Oh, my
Eats thing
goodness.
is something that I haven't even asked. And I can certainly ask Department of Revenue how the direction is to
So
go.
Jimmy
good,
John's
good.
goes 5 minutes away from their store. That's their policy.
Right.
And that one on Martin Way, you can easily get them into Thurston County.
Sure,
5
sure.
minutes.
Heck, yeah.
Oh,
And
the
have
whole
them
tech-
deliver my
The way they
sandwich to
drive,
an
yeah.
intersection.
The whole
So I get that.
unincorporated area, Tanglewilde, Thompson Place, all of
free.
that area in there. That's all county.
Yeah, it's free
Brewery City,
delivery.
Empress
Yeah.
Palace,
Pick
they
a
go
We have
Tangle
everywhere.
Brewery
Wild.
City coming to my house that's,
Yep,
in
mine
the
too.
I'm sure one of our
unincorporated,
constituents
so-
in Tanglewilde would let us pull up to their curb and get a
Yeah,
sandwich.
I don't know about the tax on food at restaurants.
So
creative.
if I may, going back to House Bill 1406, the 1/10 of 1% that takes out of the top from the sales tax that goes to the state, I'd like to stand corrected. The sunset date is 20 years after the legislative authority
20
you
years.
take an action.
All right.
It's 20 years before?
It's 20 years the sunset date.
Oh, sunset date, okay, yeah,
It is a 12-month waiting period after the law is passed.
okay.
Okay, 4 more on this list.
Yes. House Bill 1667 does the public records reporting. That creates a little bit of flexibility on the reporting that we need to do, pass both houses. Pass the House and is in the Senate Rules Committee. Prevailing wages also resolves some of the unintended consequences of the previous bill last year, and that passed both houses on the governor's desk. And Senate Bill, gross substitute Senate Bill 5272 that's related to sales tax for 911. That passed the Senate and right now is at the House, but the last message that I got on that is held by the in the House because the State Patrol has some issues on this particular bill. I don't know what those issues are. So it's not moving in the House Rules Committee. And House Bill 1829, that's the Veterans Assistance Levy, passed the House, is in the Senate rules, and hopefully pass the Senate rules and move into the floor of the Senate. And this bill is characterized as NTIB, necessary to implement the budget. So good news.
And where is the old 2006? What happened?
So the House Bill 2006, that was last year.
Yes.
It brought back a different bill and a different option.
Yes.
That has been diluted to the House Bill 1829.
And is it going to benefit us at that point?
Yes, that could have a potential of, I believe, $400,000.
Oh, okay, so that's still possible?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
it's necessary to implement the budget is good news.
Okay, okay, good. Okay, thank you.
And that is my report on the
That's it.
legislative process, unless you have additional questions.
That was a good, robust discussion. No, I have no other questions. Okay.
Commissioner, if I may,
Yes.
I'm following up on the next commissioner items.
Yep.
I just got an email from Elizabeth Petrich, and item number 6 needs to be rescheduled. She's not ready to have a conversation with you on that matter.
Okay, so we're scratching item number 6, executive session. Okay, so we'll move on with number 1 then, Chehalis Western Trail Tunnel.
Rick?
Wake up.
So this is related to the projects you have been tracking, and I briefly mentioned when you review the potential agenda item for your consideration next week. I think we have a good cost estimate the BNSF has provided, because again, Burlington Northern Santa Fe is the one who is doing the work. The department and the county is not doing that type of work. So staff is here to give you additional perspective on this project.
Hello again, Jennifer Walker,
Hello.
Public Works Director. We have a couple of items. So we originally came to the board, pull this up here real quick. We originally came to the board and we're talking about the BNSF agreement. And so we're still going to be talking about that, but it's in context of, it's one project, 2 phases. So there's the undercrossing of the railroad, and then once we punch through, once the trail punches through, Talcott Ridge Drive, there's the crossing of where the trail meets Talcott Ridge Drive. So when we talk about the project, we're talking about those 2 phases of the project. So specifically for the BNSF agreement, we originally came forward and the BNSF was saying it's going to take a 2 20-foot span bridge, and the estimated cost was approximately $980,000.
Could you clarify that, what you're, are you talking about the going underneath the railroad, or are you talking about going over Talcott now?
I'm
Keep-
talking about
keep
going underneath
talking
the
out
railroad.
loud.
I'm talking about going underneath the railroad. So when we came forward for the AIS, it had to do with the bridge.
Yeah.
And the agreement with BNSF.
Yes, and that was the 900,000 area.
980,
Okay,
yes.
good enough, that's where I'm at.
Yes, and so they came back, the railroad came back and said, we need to, instead of doing a two 20-foot spans, we need to do 3 20-foot spans. So this is the reasoning that they have said is the increase from the 980 to approximately 350,000 more. 2 20-foot spans to 3 20-foot spans because the elevation of the tracks. So 20-some years ago when that bridge originally burnt down, the trestle burnt down, they just piled that debris, the burnt debris, and they just piled it up there and just built right over it, right?
Well, that was
so
wise.
they used it as the fill. So now they're going to be punching through that. They said because of and then the support pilings are increased due to the elevation of the bridge. So basically said the cost of steel has increased, so there was an increase there. Instead of the 2 20-foot spans, they're putting in 3 20-foot spans.
No, hang on, let her finish.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah.
And then they anticipate that the cleanup of that material that they have to pull out when they punch through will have to be disposed of hazardous waste.
And that's on us.
Well, I think they're looking at, but for us coming in and trying to work out this agreement with them, they would continue with what they have there now. We right now are operating a trail that runs parallel to their tracks that we have been using, but it is not a legitimate trail. And so it's removing, they're going to block that off eventually. So this is a good opportunity to be able to punch through and move people from having to travel along Rainier onto the trail. So originally they wanted us to be responsible for repairing the bridge. They are responsible for ongoing maintenance and repair of that.
And we have a long history of this, so I want to try to catch up. Go ahead, do you have any questions?
I'll listen
go
to
ahead.
you guys' questions.
You got it, man.
Well, originally, the 900,000 was for 2 separate bridges, originally.
Well, it was to punch
Because
through,
2
but
rails,
there's
for the
2
rails,
rails.
2 rails. And
it was
the
980.
discussion at that time was that there was a possibility they might put a 3rd rail somewhere, sometime in the future. So now, are you saying they've made that decision, that they're going to put that 3rd rail, and that's why we need 3 bridges instead of 2?
No.
Well, what's the increase for 400,000 or 300,000 or whatever it was?
This is Rick Thomas with Public Works. The original bridge was estimated by their construction team, and they anticipated that it would be a 40-foot long bridge, and there would be 2 bridges, one for each lane, but each of those would be 40 feet long. When they brought this to their design group and they looked at all of the details with all the surveying, they've determined that because of the height of the actual trestle above, or I should say the rail lines, above the existing grade, they cannot make a 20-foot or a 40-foot span bridge work. They have to go to a 60-foot span in order to make sure that they have the proper slopes underneath and it's not going to be caving in. And so they are still going to be doing only 2 rail lines, but each one of those rail line bridges have to be 60 feet instead of 40 feet long. And that, so primarily we're going to be paying for an additional 20 feet of bridge for each of those 2 bridges. So the cost is basically going from 40-foot bridges to 60-foot span bridges.
And increase in product of material, increase in steel.
And there, yes.
Price, okay. Want to go to the map,
If you like.
please?
So this is Yelm Highway. Just to give an indication, north.
And
Can you
that,
tell I love to draw? So the trail, this is the Chehalis Western Trail, south, and goes to the North Yelm Highway. And as you pass Yelm Highway, just about 2 miles south, you get to this railroad tracks. As Jennifer has stated, then you need to make, going south, a hard left, and this is gravel, right? So then you go into this gravel road, gravel path.
Trail, it's not even a road.
Yeah, and then you get into the shoulder of Rainier Road for about 600 feet, and then here you pick up the trail again, right?
Yeah.
That's how it's operating right now. The BNSF right-of-way encompasses all this. So this gravel portion is owned by the BNSF, and we don't have a formal document by the BNSF that allow us for the public use. So what has happened over the years is individuals walking have jumped over going up the slope, and you can see evidence on that because it's probably what,
It's elevated,
25
It's
feet?
high.
It's 25 feet high. So they just, because they don't want to go around in this thing, they jump over, cross the railroad lines, and pick up the trail again here, right? So it creates a safety issue. That's the motivation the BNSF has. Because the other option they had was just to fence that off, right? But to fence that off, will fence the access, the gravel road. So in reality, the trail will end here, and we'll pick up here with no connection. Even to take you 20 years back, there used to be a trestle in here, a wooden trestle that it was intended to use as a trail.
Oh.
But it was vandalism. It burned that trestle, and then the BNSF decided just to fill. So it used to be a tunnel under.
But was it a trail or was there a road under there?
Well, I think
years
it was,
and years ago.
Well, this is all about this an old rail line, the Chehalis,
Right.
Chehalis Western.
Yes,
So it was a crossing.
crossing,
Yeah.
for an old
Yeah,
rail
yeah.
deal, yeah.
So the project, the Public Works envisioning, is this is the tunnel that we're working on that, and it's a 2-span bridge. There's one on each direction because that's how they're going to build, and because of the slopes, 25 feet, they decided to extend that to an additional 20 feet. That's the additional cost that you have. Because the slopes, this is the railroad line, the slopes come in here, so they need to move that structure out in order to have the slopes being correct. That is really the cost increases. So this is phase one of the project, is the tunnel. In phase two is the completion of the trail that has to cross this Talcott Ridge Road.
But that's not going to be a bridge, that's just going to be a
No,
stop.
it's just improvements. It's just finish up the trail. This is the key.
Well, where would the third tunnel go, do you know?
The third tunnel.
Third rail they're talking
Third
about.
rail.
No, okay, so what,
Oh, third span.
which is not included in here.
Okay.
What you heard is the railroad, this is two rails right here. They had a plan to have an additional third rail line in here
Sometime in the future.
sometime in the future.
So that's not an issue.
That would have required for this structure to go even further,
Yeah.
which would have been way too expensive for something that may or may not happen in the future. So that's the third rail line that you're talking about. So this is the project for your consideration related to the $1.3 million.
But instead of 20 feet, we're going 60?
Instead of 40,
40.
we're going to 60,
40.
an additional 20 feet.
220 to go with
Yeah.
40, oh, 60.
And that's really what it is. Give me another minute.
But the trails still remain level.
Yeah, so the trail, if you see a cross section, so right here is the railroad tracks.
Yeah, draw a train on there, would you? You're an engineer.
There's the train coming down the track. Puff, 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 puff.
Going the
So if
wrong
you
way.
see the cross section, that's what it is. So the trail comes in here at this level, right? In here. And this is a slope of just about 25 feet. It's pretty tall. So this tunnel needs to come here, right? Under, but needs to come far enough to have this slope be logically built. And that's what the additional 20 feet
Okay,
that
okay.
you're seeing.
And that would be a concrete tunnel?
It'll be a steel tunnel.
Okay.
Basically, it's just gonna be if you drive down Rainier Road right now,
Uh-huh.
go under the trestle, what they're building will be very similar to
Okay, okay. Questions or comments?
Okay. So they got us over a barrel is the
Well,
bottom line.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
They have always had us
However,
over the barrel.
it's a major improvement with the connection of the Chehalis Western Trail and a major safety issue for our recreating public, our
But-
citizens.
Right, I think it's a win-win.
Yeah.
Thank you for allowing me to draw this.
I have one other question. Is there a possibility that we could take the project manager's wage out of this 1.3 instead of out of the courthouse money?
May I answer?
Very good. Any
I
other
don't know.
questions or comments on that issue?
No. Okay, good enough.
Did you have more on that, either Rick or Jennifer, on that topic?
We do. We'd like to talk just for a moment about the phase 2 portion of this project as well.
I deleted it.
I was going to say, if you can remember what Romero had on the board, once we do get the trail completed underneath the Burlington Northern tracks and to Talcott Ridge Drive, phase 2 would be to design and then construct what we're calling a runnel. It's really probably a bridge and a tunnel combination. It's just an overpass. We'll build an overpass for the trail to literally go over the road in order to be able to keep individuals off of the street. And the primary reason that we need to do that is because of ADA issues. The road slopes at such a steep pitch that there's no way that we can physically reconfigure the road to meet ADA and still allow access onto that road into the development. And so the phase 2 of the plan would be to again, build that overpass in order to completely make the trail safe and then make the entire continuity of that from Burlington all the way past the development.
Because you're saying that road slopes like such, and it's, people have got to go this way,
Correct.
and
So if we bring the road down, as it comes up the hill, it turns off. And so we have to bring that road down. We have to bring both of the approaching at that intersection down. So that's a part of what is being looked at now is how that, so that's a part of what's being looked at now is how to make that crossing when the pedestrians come through on the trail and Talcott Ridge Drive comes down into Rainier.
go ahead.
You made mention of ADA requirements or something. I suppose that has something to do with slope and wheelchair access and that kind of thing? I mean, we have,
Yes, grade.
It has to do with grade, and it's all of ADA, not just wheelchair, but all of the factors that go into ADA compliance.
but we've got many trail intersections with public roadways all throughout the county, that the trail just comes up to the roadway, you have to stop, go across the roadway, and continue on the trail. And none of that has been an issue, so you're saying that all of those have been a flat area that we came together and created that junction?
That's what I'm hearing.
That is correct.
And there's no way we can take this back far enough to either build it up or bring it down to make that work way cheaper?
I like to draw this again. No, and I think it's a little bit different.
While you're drawing that, may I ask, are we working with the homeowners association if they have one, and/or the residents with feedback and all that? What's their take on it?
We have.
We did have a public meeting last fall, and we've had continued outreach to the homeowners association. And, you know, not going to get 100% of the people, you know, jumping up and down for joy, but for the most part, we're getting very positive feedback about this project.
Probably about keeping people out of the neighborhood or off the street.
Correct.
And going up and over. And how high would that be?
It's about probably 16 or 17 feet in order to get over Talcott Ridge.
I mean, that's going to be another $1 million, isn't it?
We don't think so.
It's got to be strong enough to drive on. No?
Well, it needs to be, I mean, needs to be to trail capacity, you know, probably enough for a, you know, utility truck.
That's what I'm thinking,
to be able
utility
to
truck,
go through,
yes.
But, you know, not to the level of emergency vehicles that bridges would have to be built towards. So it'd be the same kind of overpass that we have in other places on the trail.
I am really interested if we can't slope that back somehow.
Hang on, do you have a question?
No, I think I have the same concerns Commissioner Edwards does. I had the same thought. I mean, there's a whole bunch of intersections down the trail. You're telling me it's just because we've got a sloped road we've got to get over. And and then I was going to ask about what's that going to cost us. You're saying less than $1.3 million, but we don't know. It's not part of this budget's just for phase one. It's a whole nother.
Well, a portion of it was for phase two, and that's to do the study to determine what's the best approach. So that estimate that was put together for phase two was done last year when we thought this was moving forward, and so we need to take a little bit more time to take a look at what the resolution is for that crossing. That's what I've asked them to do.
And this is paid out of REIT and parks?
Correct.
Okay.
We were originally concerned on park impact fees, that we wouldn't have a capital budget strong enough to be able to start using some of those park impact fees, and so we are able to do that on here, and so that is actually a side benefit to this
What's the
project.
percentage of park impact fee versus other funds that we're using?
I think it's 30.
It's about 1/3 is from the REIT fund and 2/3 is park impact fees.
Yeah.
And we're not allowed to use that for personnel for upkeep of our parks, is that right?
That's correct.
So the issues of, this is Rainier Road, this Talcott Ridge, and if you see from an aerial view, that's where the new crossing will occur.
Yes.
So the issue is, when the trail crosses, it has to cross somewhere in here. This is the crown of Rainier Road, and this is Talcott Ridge, if you see it on a profile view, okay? This Talcott Ridge has 8% climb. So in order for the trail to come and intersect this road at an 8%, that's unacceptable. Because if you cross with a wheelchair, the wheelchair would slide on that 8% grade. So because maximum requirements of ADA is 2%, and that's what we have on the sidewalks, is a 2% slope. So the project, what it's planning to do is to modify this road to allow this gentle, different color. That's really what needs to be done in Talcott Ridge, is to allow this bench to have a 2% where the trail crosses. And that is the ADA requirements.
Okay.
So, because again, if you just come and connect the road at an 8%, that is unacceptable.
Well, that's what I was thinking, but that's not what they're describing.
Yeah, they're talking about another bridge going across there,
Over the top.
over the top. And that's what's bugging us.
We've, again, part of the study that we would do would be to verify what our initial investigation was. When we did have the engineers do a preliminary look at this, when they looked at the length of road that we had from the top of Talcott Ridge down to Rainier Road, there's just simply was not enough linear space to really to make it work, unless we started cutting back the ridge itself going in the north-south direction. And again, they haven't done all the detailed estimates for these, but their initial thought was, in order to change the road configuration would cost, in their minds, substantially more than building or putting in a prefabricated overpass.
So I was so distracted in drawing this that I missed the bridge option. So
How about we let you guys figure it out?
That's news to me. So,
Okay.
Well, we have a trail crossing right over 14th Ave in Lacey by Chambers Lake. And I drive it all the time, but I don't know with this bridge, when it comes to water runoff, with heavy rains, would it be just like a sheet of water people are driving through? Or are there gutters and such on the side to run water off, or how does that work?
When they get into the design of it, I'm convinced they're going to be looking at all the stormwater aspects of it, and they'll make sure that it gets diverted off the roads into the existing stormwater.
Having my concern with the stormwater runoff.
Right.
Okay.
Let's have an analytical review by our engineer.
yes,
That's our
you have many engineers in Public Works, Commissioner.
That's our county manager, too.
At some point, would the changes on that road go out for public comment? Because I'm hearing from people that live in that area.
We did tell them that once we got through with phase one, that number one, we gave them some ideas about what phase two might be, but we did tell them that when we got to phase two, there would be additional public outreach.
Good.
Which is a part of our process for our
Right.
capital projects. We do that, is the communication piece.
Anything further on that?
I'd like to hear more about it later.
I didn't see your lips move. How'd you do that?
Sorry about that,
That's
sir.
all right. Do you have any further going on?
No, I think,
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
it's distressing in a way, but, the use of the park impact fees is important, and that kind of changes it. It's a nuance that the public may not quite understand, but for me, it changes the dynamic, because it's really a pretty expensive project, honestly. It was the first 2 weeks I was on the job, and I thought $980,000 was a lot, and now I'm finding out it's 1.3 plus a phase two. So I'm still a little bit reeling by what it costs to do this, given the whole range of other needs that we have and things pressing on us, but I do understand the park impact fees and how that plays into the decision-making.
I do want to also say that in regards to the cost of the actual bridge itself that Burlington is doing, we have had the engineers give us their feedback on it, and they've told us that they probably couldn't design and build the bridge for anything less than that either. I mean, it's special construction to do rail bridges, and as Jennifer already mentioned, as a part of the agreement, they design, build it, and then they own it and they operate it and they maintain it for the length of the bridge itself.
I guess having a train on top of a bridge is a pretty substantial amount of weight and torque and all that stuff.
Exactly.
Do you have anything further on that, Gary?
So the item you will be considering next week is related to the phase 1 of the project, the tunnel. And also we'll come back to the board on the options for phase 2 with a little more detail as to how that is going to be overcome. So there's more to come on that.
It just seems kind of odd that if we don't do the phase 1, phase 2 is moot. If we do phase 1 and we can't afford or whatever, and we just end the trail there with Talcott Ridge Drive or Road, then we just spent money to do nothing, to go nowhere. So we have to do something.
It's why you're hearing us kick around what a potential option is for crossing Talcott Ridge, because when we met last year and talked about this project internally, what I didn't want to do was have a bridge that got, a trail that got punched through and led to nowhere and had no plan of what we were going to do. So that plan of what we were going to do, we did not take the time that we normally take to do the analysis on that. So it was a way to move forward, that if we needed to do that, that was a way to move forward. But we have more time. We're going to take that time to do a further estimate of what that crossing at Talcott is going to look like. But you're right, they are tied together.
And I have one final question, and we can move on. Put in my head what kind of a time frame we're looking at. If we approve this next week, phase 1, when would it be done, and when will we be looking at phase 2? 2 years down the road? Longer? 18 months? I don't know.
2.5, maybe 3 years. It'll depend on that.
For phase 2?
For phase 2, for the completion of it. For phase 1, the design and construction of Burlington Northern, they need 45-day lead time for materials. So from the time the agreement is signed and executed, 45 days to then begin construction on that. So the schedule they gave us was completion starting, I think, in August, September.
Okay, good. Anything else? Nope. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Now we're here on item number 2, Courthouse Project, for and against statements, follow-up.
Yeah, this is a follow-up to the item that I introduced to you, Commissioners, last week. That, that if the board makes a decision to put this particular measure in front of the voters as a ballot initiative, under the RCW 29A322A0, you are required to make a good effort to recruit a committee of 3 for a pro and against committee. And also we discussed what the role will be of the county auditor in this particular role. I touched base with Elizabeth, and the law states you need to make an effort to recruit a pro and against committee members. If after that effort it returns fruitless, you don't have anybody, then the auditor is required to do the same and get a pro and against committee that will develop on the statement that needs to be filed as part of the ballot measure language. So the proposal that I'd like to offer to you will be really is if for Megan to have a news release securing a pro and against committee members. You can also reach out individually, whether it's a pro and against individuals that you may see fit. So you also have that ability to reach out on your own to see if anybody's interested to be part of that committee of 3 pro or against. So those are the options that I'd like to bring this to you. Last week I gave you an indication of some of the timelines associated with this particular matter. If the commissioners decided to put this measure on the August 6th, 2019 special election, there is a May 10th deadline in which that needs to be submitted to the auditors with a pro and against statement. But if you choose to go on November 6th, 2019, that has a deadline of August 6th, 2019. If you go on February 2020, that has a deadline of December of 2019. So those are the options that I have for you, and that's the recommendation that I have for you as well.
Can we, I mean, my understanding is there's a committee in favor of the proposed ballot measure. Can we designate the chair of that committee and let them designate 2 other people and then have Megan go forward with the other side?
No.
But we have to do it the exact same way on both sides.
Yeah, the way you have, there is I think what you're referring to is a new courthouse campaign committee. And the chair of the campaign committee has offered a name of Mr. Trevor Zundell to be part of the pro.
I thought he was the chair of the campaign committee. That's what.
Yes, he is the chair.
Yeah.
So he has been offered as a name to serve as the part of the pro committee. But the appointment of those committee members, you cannot defer that to this outfit. You need to make a formal appointment for the pro and against committee. So before you have Mr. Trevor Zundell as one individual who can serve as part of the pro committee.
Terry Zandell?
Trevor.
I'm sorry, Trevor Zundell. And that is really what the only request that you have received so far related to this appointment. But again, I don't think you can defer that appointment to this committee, because that's your responsibility.
Got it.
Go ahead.
I think we're obligated, according to that RCW, then to put out some kind of a request for citizens that are interested, pro or con, and then make the selection, aren't we?
Yeah, so what the law states, and Elizabeth was very clear with me, you need to make an effort to reach out and secure pro and against committee members.
And part of that effort could be directing Megan, for an example, to put an advertisement out through her normal advertising process with whomever we correspond with.
Yeah, that's my suggestion to you, is
okay.
work with Megan to see if she can draft a news release. And the news release will be in terms of you're considering, because you're considering putting this particular measure before the voters. And if the board decides to move forward with this particular measure, we're required to secure committee members for a pro and against committee. If you're interested, please send your name to Megan, and we'll bring that back to you. That's my recommendation for you.
And then where does that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, am I fine with that? I just want to make sure the timelines are tight, because we haven't ruled out August. If we're doing August, not only do we have to, it's not just that we have to submit the names by May 10th, but then their statement is due by May 17th. If I were the one designated to do the statement, I would want a couple of weeks. So
Right.
I would like to have it set to where we get these people's names submitted quickly enough that we could then make a decision about who they would be 2 weeks before May 17th, so they have adequate time to draft an appropriate
So
statement. And then if we decide to go a different way and they get more time, great, the work's done.
So let me walk you through the schedule that I have in mind. And again, for me, is making sure that you have all the options before you, and one of the options is the August 2019 special election. You have a public hearing next Tuesday. I'm planning for me to have this item, a formal action, on April 30th for you to take an action based on what you've heard from the public hearing. And at that point, if you decide to go with I'm just speculating, well, with the August 2019, at that point, I will also ask to make a formal appointment of those for the pro and against committee. Let's take back. I will work with Megan to send a news release hopefully by the end of today, and we can secure names by the end of next week. So hopefully we coincide those two items for you to have all those options available. That's my.
That works for me.
So the names that get submitted to Megan, where do they go from there?
Those names come to you.
They come to us.
Yeah.
What was the piece about the auditor?
Well, if for instance, if you, after this effort that you have gone through and reach out to citizens, if you don't have anybody from in the against committee, because you do have one person on the pro committee, if you don't have anybody on the against committee, then you have met the intent of the law by making an effort to secure individuals on this committee. And at that point, you just refer that to the auditor to secure an against statement.
Because my preference would be to keep this as far from us as possible and let the auditor do it. But if we are required by our CW to do this,
you're required.
Then we'll do that. So my next question is, when we have our public hearing next week, we may or may not decide that day. It may be a week or so down, we decide for the ballot, when it will go to the ballot. But can we put out an initial, if you are interested, announcement? If you're interested, pro or con, get your name in. That'd be like the first announcement.
Yeah, that's what I'm suggesting.
Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's what I'm suggesting.
I was formulating my thoughts. I didn't hear you then.
I suggested to send a news release hopefully today,
okay.
requesting individuals.
Good idea. We're like, man, you're good. Thought projection. Okay. Thought projection. Thank you. You got it? Okay. Now I do. Anything else on that one? Good grief, man. I wasted time. On the courthouse?
No, no. So I work with Megan and send that out, and we receive any. But again, you do have the option, again, as individual commissioners, to reach out to individuals. They may be interested either on pro or against committee. So please do so.
Okay.
Please do so.
Anything further?
No.
You got it finally? I did.
Got it.
All right. Number 4, request from New Life Baptist Church.
You want to touch base on the public testimony first, Commissioner? Number 3.
I already crossed it off. Go ahead.
Apparently not.
I was thinking, while you were talking, I was thinking ahead. So go ahead, public comment.
No, I'm wondering, is it me today?
And I'm not taking cold medicine either. That's probably the issue.
So you receive 2 pieces of many pieces. Let me get back to.
And what topic are we talking about on public testimony here?
Yeah, I'm going to give you the what you
I'm going
received.
to take it forward my foot long.
So last week you had some public testimony from Mr. Mary Ann Thompson, and she invited you to the May 11, 2018 Olympia Yacht Club grand opening. It is 8:30 in the morning. I put your individual invitations or individual boxes, so that should be up to your discretion whether you'd like to attend or not. If you let me know, please let your assistants know if 2 or more commissioners are going to be attending. So we are making sure that we added that on the master calendar. Also, you received public testimony from Mr. Esther Kammerberg and Jerry Durker related to this project in Green Cove Park, and urging the commissioners to take an action on that. That becomes a little more difficult because this is a City of Olympia project, and it was a news release article maybe 2-3 weeks ago related to this, and the Olympian, where Keith Staley was quoted on this because it was a lot of public testimony related to this project. As he stated in the news release, this is just the beginning. The City of Olympia has now taken an action whether approving or not this particular project. So there is a lot of environmental assessment that needs to be done before the city can be in the position to take an action on this particular project. And in considering this within the city of Olympia, really the county does not have the authority to, impose any type of requirements for the city on their development permitting process. So within that context, that's what I'm planning to respond this afternoon to that comment. Any questions on that?
That was my question. What authority do we have to deal with this particular topic? And it sounds like we have none.
No.
So it's, Esther and Jerry were just bringing this to our attention to be aware of. Were they expecting that we were to go down and arm wrestle the city or what?
Well, they make an indication that perhaps has been a violation of federal law, and so there is a lot of. Go ahead.
This water, this aquifer and this Green Cove Creek runs directly across the city boundary. I mean, it's at the north end of Olympia boundary. So technically, the project is in Olympia, but the health and water effect could very easily, if what they're saying is right, and I don't know anything about it, but if what they're saying is right, it could very easily affect the county. And I'm a neighbor, like it would come right to basically my neighborhood. Green Cove crosses Kaiser, for example, if we're driving through Evergreen Parkway, and the city of Olympia boundary is about a quarter mile south of that. So it could if what they're saying is right, it could very easily become an issue for us because of health effects and water effects for our citizens and wells of county residents just downstream of where this project is sited. So it's not I don't think it's on our plate right now, but I could see down the road that it might end up.
It could be, and I think what we need to do is perhaps be cognizant of the process the city of Olympia goes through and related to the environmental considerations they'll do. Eventually, they will have to issue an environmental statement, whether it's no impacts or impacts. Maybe at that point is when they issue that and the results of the CEPA process is when perhaps the county and any other citizens have the opportunity to comment on that. And that may be an opportunity as to how the county could comment on that particular project, depending as to what the level and the depth of the environmental studies they have provided.
Because Esther lives, she lives in the county, but connected to the Green Cove watershed. So she would be, I mean, she's appropriately coming to us to let us know as a county resident who could be affected by this project sited within Olympia.
But that's what I'm planning to respond at this point. Really, the county doesn't have any jurisdiction over this project, and certainly will be on the lookout in a way as to how the city of Olympia is planning to move forward on this application.
Okay, I don't. Do you live in the counties?
Yes.
Okay. Are you hooked up on lot, or do you have on-site system?
I'm on lot.
On lot. Okay.
In the urban growth area.
Because you're in the urban growth area. And then you get city water as well, right? So I guess I would ask, possibly we ask our health department folks, Art Starry and company, maybe if we've got wells that are what they call six-pack wells, where the testing comes in, I don't know, once a month or something. We do some testing over here for those type of wells, that we take a look at water quality and see if anything's showing up on any wells in close proximity. I mean, is that something that we could at least ask our folks to look at without much trouble?
Well, I think the water quality is okay. The question is if they stir up all this.
Yeah, that's the issue.
They're saying there's all this toxic stuff that's been dumped, and if they start building houses there, it's going to then, the effect would be bad.
Oh.
So that is their concern, absolutely, because
So
at this point, whether we can test the water may or may not result in any issues. But as soon as the concern is as soon as you start disturbing the contaminated soils, then you open up the migration of those contaminants into the water stream.
But it does sound, oh, go ahead.
But at least we have a baseline from which to measure. When they start, if they start digging stuff up and disturbing it, we say, oh, well, look at this level going up. Not,
Well,
okay, we're going to start testing now.
You know, I will probably caution task staff to go and start testing the wells around this area.
I don't advocate for that. I would only advocate that they review the logs currently in existence for water quality, that's all.
And I do believe that's part of the process, the environmental process. They need to look at water quality impacts as a result of this project. So certainly I will touch base with environmental health just to make sure they're also tracking and reviewing this project when it comes to their attention.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay. That was public testimony. Number 5, request for new life.
The other public testimony you received was from Mr. and Mrs. Brown.
Yeah, down in Rochester area.
Yeah, down in Rochester area, and they were making a reference to Scott Clark. That was the two past directors on the known CPED now. And so what I couldn't understand is what is it they were requesting from the commissioners in a way. They were just giving a good long history. But if they want to change their land use designation, there is a process in which they need to submit for you to consider whether adding in the docket or not for future. So I will probably encourage them, that will be my response, if they feel they need to change their land use, there is a process, and I will refer them back to CPED as to what that process is.
Okay.
Are you planning on making comment about their comments at some point today? Are you going to?
This afternoon, I'm just going to address their comments.
You are going to address the
comments? Yeah, and that's my proposed response.
Okay.
They're going to refer them to the process that we have in CPED as to how they can request the Board of County Commissioners to consider a change in land use.
It sounds like nobody is here that was here when that took place, including
Scott Clark?
Scott Clark. Anyway, none of the commissioners are the same, none of the directors are the same. So we can't hardly second guess what they did or didn't do.
Yeah, and that's what I don't want to get to the point of
maybe just advise them that the process is to put in application.
Yeah.
I wouldn't get into it too deep.
No, I'm not planning to, because I'm not going to get to the point of hearsay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine.
All right.
And lastly, you have a comment from Mr. Scott Bannister, and he continues to state that for you to consider the Second Amendment ordinance, but I believe you already considered this and decided not to, so I will respond on those terms as well.
Thank you. No more testimony? Response? Okay. New Life Baptist?
Yeah, I got a request from Ms. Thelma Jackson, and this is related to for the board to consider a letter of congratulations to the newly bishop, Mr. Lorenzo Peterson, to the New Life Baptist Church. And this is just the requesting a letter for you to sign saying, congratulations, Mr. Bishop Lorenzo Peterson, on your appointment to the New Life Baptist Church.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out what's it about with government. What are we doing?
Yeah.
I'm not against it.
No, there is nothing related to government. She was just reach out to you to see if you're interested in sending a letter congratulating the appointment of Mr. Lorenzo Peterson as a bishop.
Is he a community member or a new person in the
I
community?
have no background on him. I have nothing else to offer other than this request.
A bishop, what does that mean?
Is the
Like
head
an
of the
elder in a
church.
church? Or?
Of that church?
Yeah.
Kind of like the pastor
Yeah.
of the church?
I'm not opposed to it either. At face value, congratulate someone for achieving that stature, but I would like more about him, where he comes from, the background. I'd like just more information rather than just, would you support a letter?
Well, are we opening Pandora's box, I guess?
Thank you. I was going to offer my perspective, unsolicited now. I think
I'm soliciting you.
I think this perhaps gets into the separation of church and state.
Yeah.
And,
you're right.
and I can but I would just want to give you my objective approach is this request, but now my solicited approach, it raised some concerns to me. Because then there will not be a separation between church and state.
Well, there's a lot of church organizations that do a lot of important social service work in the community, and I think it's appropriate for us to, in a given case, to thank them for that work. But there's a lot of small churches. I'm not familiar with this church, and sometimes they stand for 99% of the times they stand for good things.
Yeah.
But every now and then there's other stuff. So I'm not familiar with this church, and given that there's not a community service aspect to it, I would see it as outside our role.
I'll weigh in when you're done. Go ahead, Gary.
Where is this church located?
It's P.O. Box 3730.
Well,
here's the letter.
No, it's Pacific Avenue.
What I was going to suggest was that,
It's on the
for
church.
an example, where is it?
It's up by, kind of by
Yeah, okay. And that's probably maybe in my district or your district. I really don't know whose district it is. Because of the concerns that you mentioned, I would be more than willing to go as a county commissioner and welcome him to the community if he's new in the community. I just don't see it as a role for this board to take, because where does it lead? And those are always ticklish situations, and why do we want to go there? I mean, we want to welcome a gentleman that's going to do good in our community. I look at all the churches, most 99% of them anyway, is doing good. I don't know them all, but I would certainly be willing to go welcome him, have coffee, whatever it would take. I hesitate that dual involvement, that we might be overstepping and whatnot. I don't know that, but pretty soon we'll have about 100 requests in here, I suppose.
My take is, just at face value, separation of church and state, in my opinion, doesn't apply, because we're not promoting and standing up a church or a religion. But to counter that, we would have to do that for every religious
church,
body in the county. But if this gentleman, if the bishop, rather, was to come in, or if Thelma were to come in and introduce him, and he said, I've been a community member for 40 years, and I've done A through Z for the county or for the community, then I would congratulate or honor that individual as a citizen, an outstanding citizen, but not just because of his stature within a church. But I don't see it as promoting religion unless we do it for everybody, all churches. Does that make sense?
I'm going to try to, I think I can maybe help solve this, because I actually know this church. I've met Dr. Jackson, so I do know the people involved here. They're also inviting us to attend the service in addition to the letter, and I think I'll just do that. And hopefully that'll make them feel good about it, and it doesn't put the board in a position of needing to generate a letter every time we get a request like this if it's not appropriate, because I think I'm available. So
that's Easter Sunday. It's going to be packed.
it's the weekend after Easter, but it's Orthodox Easter, but
It's this,
the 28th.
oh yeah, 28th, you're right, the weekend after.
So I'll deal with it that way.
So I will respond on your behalf in terms of this is not what a traditional Board of County Commissioners will do. However, each commissioners have been invited to the service on the 28th, and they may be attending to celebrate the appointment of bishop, in person. Will that work?
So that'll go on the master calendar?
Yep.
Okay. Because they're going to commemorate this event in a book. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
No, I mean, it's just an unusual request is all, but
That's Thelma.
is there something that, like when the Salvation Army changes guard, somebody brings them in and they do we've recognized that changing of the guard. So, I mean, if Thelma wanted to come in and introduce him, it's a 3-minute deal, or I don't know, is that appropriate? I don't know, I'm just trying to figure out a way to do it without opening Pandora's box. I guess that's where I'm at on the whole thing.
He does appear to be new to the community.
He does appear to be. He's new to the area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I wish him well in dealing with all the problems we deal with.
So that'll be on the master calendar, and we can attend if we so choose. Okay. Got it.
But it sounds like we do have a representative that's going to go.
I'll extend a welcome from,
I'll go.
From the board, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, commissioner items. 4 minutes.
No, I have an executive session for you.
That's right.
Item number 7.
We can dispense commissioner items. Let's go right into executive session then. Thank you, folks. See ya.